Chapter 177. Guilty conscience, guilty conscience, guilty conscience. She subconsciously tightened her arms and legs, looking up at Sheng Shiming. Sheng Shiming didn't hear what they were talking about, but seeing her blushing face, he knew that it might not be something suitable for him to hear. Seeing her nervous and embarrassed eyes, he immediately lowered his head and pretended not to see it. "Why is your face so red?" As if he did not know what he had said, he reached out and touched her face. "It's so hot. Are you not feeling well? Go away." She turned her head and glared at him, blushing even more. With a faint smile, Li Xiqing quickly let go of her, washed his hands, and helped her put on the food. She was a bit surprised. It turned out that Li Xiqing could do this kind of work. She stared at him for a while, and found that he looked much better in the clothes than she did. Song Yifan also walked over and asked, "I heard that the Li Financial Group is preparing for a cocktail party, and is looking for a suitable band. Have they found one?" "Cocktail party?" She looked up at Li Xiqing. "Your company is having a cocktail party again? How come she did not know about it?" The so-called cocktail party of the Li Financial Group must be of a large scale. The amount of manpower and financial resources required was remarkable. Every time it was held, it was definitely because there was a new project being launched, or there was an important announcement being made. However, she did not remember such a thing in her previous lifetime. Was she wrong? Not the company. Li Xiqing did not look up. "It's for you." "For me?" She felt flattered. "Why? A press conference." He stopped and looked at her. "A woman of the Li family will meet people sooner or later." A woman of the Li family. His words were light as a feather, but they made her heart flutter. Su Qianxi looked at Li Xiqing's handsome face, cold and hard. But at this moment, she was inexplicably tempted. A woman of the Li family. Had she been acknowledged? Not just because her grandfather liked her, not just because she thought too highly of herself, but because she was truly recognized as a woman of the Li family? Moreover, he had specially organized a large-scale cocktail party for her. This kind of treatment, this kind of surprise, was something he had never experienced in his previous life. Her heart seemed to be tightly twisted at this moment, and her little face was also a little red from excitement. She asked, "Is this Grandpa's idea?" "Yes," Li Xiqing responded indifferently, but when he looked around, he clearly saw the disappointment in her eyes. "He asked me to hold a meet and greet. Therefore, the cocktail party was actually his own idea." However, Su Qianxi did not understand. Slightly disappointed, she said, "Got it." Li Xiqing gave her a deep look, and did not explain. He turned to Song Yifan and said, "Not yet. If your band is interested, we can talk." "Yes, when?" Number 15. Su Qianxi was a bit nervous. "So sudden? Doesn't that mean it won't be long?" "Yes, the sooner the better." He couldn't wait any longer. He wanted to tell the world that she was his wife. At that time, no matter how reluctant she was destined to be labeled as Li Xiqing's wife. Chapter 178. "Okay, I'll do it. Didn't you say you were going fishing? The hooks are ready. Let's go." Adwa came over and took all the work, shoving a few fishing rods into her hands. However, she did not dare to look at Sheng Shiming, fearing that he would blame her. Fortunately, after Sheng Shiming took the fishing rods, he did not say anything. He picked up the bucket and took Su Qianxi to the boat. Su Qianxi looked a bit excited. Putting down the things, she trotted over with Sheng Shiming. However, when she was about to get on the boat, she was pulled back by a big hand. Li Xiqing looked cold. Seeing her confused look, he said, "Slow down." Then he got on the boat first, and reached out his hand to her. "Oh." Su Qianxi stuck her tongue out and slowed down. She took his hand and walked up. Song Yifan saw that and felt relieved. Soon he got on the boat as well. The small boat slowly moved to the middle of the sea and stopped. Sheng Shiming was a good fisherman, which Su Qianxi had always known. However, in less than 10 minutes, there were already 2 fish in his bucket, and Li Xiqing, not a single one. Holding the fishing rod, Su Qianxi sat there seriously, peeking at Li Xiqing, and then at Song Yifan. Neither of them had caught any fish, but obviously, Li Xiqing was much calmer than Song Yifan. Seeming to notice her gaze, he glanced over, calm and indifferent. Su Qianxi stuck her tongue out at him and quickly turned her head to stare at the calm sea. Just where she did not see, there was a gentle smile in Li Xiqing's cold eyes. About 10 minutes later, Su Qianxi felt a bit restless. When she was thinking about leaving, the fishing rod suddenly moved. Opening her eyes in surprise, Su Qianxi was excited. "I got it! Mr. Li, look, I got it!" Seeing that she was as excited as a child, Li Xiqing curled his lips and grabbed her fishing rod. "The fish is going to escape." "Oh right." Su Qianxi quickly reeled in the line. A fish was struggling, splashing water on them. "Mr. Li?" Song Yifan looked up. His eyes, which had always been gentle, became sharp at this moment. "Aren't you husband and wife?" Hearing that, Su Qianxi's heart skipped a beat, and the smile on her face froze. Inexplicably, she felt guilty. Husband and wife. Are they husband and wife? Although their relationship had eased recently, this word was still so distant for Su Qianxi. Married couple. It was as if she had stolen it. She did not feel comfortable using the title of Li Xiqing's wife. But he did admit it, didn't he? He seemed to like her, didn't he? Subconsciously, he looked at Li Xiqing. Li Xiqing also paused. Seeing Su Qianxi's stiff face, his eyes darkened. But very quickly, he calmly removed the hook and placed it on the small bucket beside her. He calmly said, "It's just a form of address, but you have to change it in the future. Don't let outsiders misunderstand." "Yes, it's just a form of address." She nodded. "I see." Looking at Su Qianxi's face, Song Yifan was dazed. After a few seconds, he said, "With all due respect, Miss Su, you look a lot like a friend of mine." Chapter 179. Don't get me wrong. That friend of mine is only 2 years younger than me, and she is gone. Song Yifan's eyes dimmed. "Rong Xian?" Su Qianxi asked. In the past, when she and Sheng Ximing were very close, this was the name that came out of his mouth the most. However, he called her Xian. If she guessed correctly, this woman should not only be Sheng Ximing's first love, but also Song Yifan's ex-girlfriend. Their relationship was a bit complicated. However, it was clear that the reason why they had a falling out was because of this dead Rong Xian. Song Yifan was dazed. "How do you know?" He looked at Sheng Ximing. Sheng Ximing was also surprised to hear the name from Su Qianxi, and looked over. Seeing their gazes, Su Qianxi knew that she had guessed correctly. She coughed and said, "Uncle Sheng mentioned this name by accident once, and I remembered it." "Really? I mentioned it?" Sheng Ximing felt a bit strange. For him and Song Yifan, this name was an untouchable memory. There was no reason for him to tell her. However, if he did not expose it, how did she know? "Yes, I did." Su Qianxi felt a bit guilty, and quickly changed the topic. "I really want to see how much she looks like me. When Uncle Sheng saw me for the first time, he also said that I look like her." Her laughter was a bit forced, and Li Xiqing couldn't stand it anymore. He pulled her to his side and whispered, "Have I told you that you're not good at lying?" Su Qianxi blushed and said, I did not lie." She really did not lie. She had heard it from Sheng Ximing, just not in this lifetime. Fortunately, Sheng Ximing and Song Yifan did not care about that. Song Yifan smiled, took out his wallet from his pocket, and opened it, revealing an old-fashioned color photo. It looked a bit old, and the photo was slightly yellow. However, it was well preserved, and the photo was very clear. There were 2 people in the photo, a man and a woman. The man was gentle, handsome, and tall. The woman was smiling, wearing a light yellow dress and a yellow floral hat. She was holding the man's arm and looking forward. The face under the hat was very similar to Su Qianxi's. At first glance, Su Qianxi thought it was her. He widened his eyes and took a closer look. Only then did he notice a slight difference in his facial features. Rong Xian's nose was taller, while hers was smaller. Rong Xian's lips were a little thick, and her smile was sexy and cute. Her lips, on the other hand, were smaller and thinner. Touching her lips, she looked up at Song Yifan. However, when she looked up, she saw that he was looking at her warmly. Deep in his eyes, there was an indescribable meaning. "This is Xian, a photo from 22 years ago. At that time, she and I almost registered for marriage, But after this photo was taken, she disappeared. Song Yifan looked at her and said sadly. 2 years later, her body was found in a mountain in the 100,000 mountain. 22 years ago, Su Qianxi's heart was beating fast. She was almost 21 years old. In addition, that face was extremely similar to his. Could it really be such a coincidence? Chapter 180. But that was impossible. Her mother was Su Han. Moreover, back then, Su Han had been abducted to the 100,000 mountains, and, after that, she had given birth to her, hadn't she? Although Su Qianxi did not want to admit it, her biological father was most likely a dark and ugly mountain man, who could not find a wife, so he sold women to reproduce. How did it become Song Yifan now? As Su Qianxi's heart was pounding, Song Yifan continued. However, you were sent to the orphanage 3 years later, and the woman who sent you there was Rong Xian. That was to say Rong Xian was not dead? Are you sure? Yes, I am very sure. Song Yifan looked at her. These days, I have done a thorough investigation. You are the child, but he was not sure if she was his child. The probability of this happening was too small, too small. You suspect that she is your daughter? Li Xiqing asked for him. Song Yifan was silent, and so was Sheng Ximing. It was not so much suspicion, or rather hope. He hoped that Su Qianxi was his and Rong Xian's child. Or rather, he hoped that he and Rong Xian had a child. She had left, and had not returned for 22 years. He had waited and thought for too long. God knew how surprised he was when Sheng Ximing hurriedly called him back from abroad to tell him the news. He wished he could take her to the hospital for a paternity test. But now he did not dare to do that. He was afraid that if she was not his daughter. Hey! A duo's voice came from the coast. The barbecue is ready. Come back and eat. Sheng Ximing responded to a duo and quickly said to them, Let's go. Let's not talk about this anymore. We are all out on vacation. Let's go. The boat returned to the coast. A duo and Ali kept showing off their affection, while Su Qianxi was a bit worried because of what Song Yifan had just said. She did not eat much and left with Li Xiqing. Back at the hotel, it was already past 6 p.m. Su Qianxi sat on the bed, thinking about what Song Yifan had just said. Don't think too much. He is not your father. Li Xiqing handed her a glass of warm water, his voice still cold. What? She looked up. How did you know? I guessed. But I think the possibility is very high. What should I do? That Rong Xian really looks like me. Don't you think? Yes, but she's not Su Han. I know. She had seen Su Han's photo before. At that time, she felt that she looked different from Su Han. She thought that she looked like her father. But now that she thought about it, her unpopularity in the Su family, and her uncle's distant attitude towards her. She originally thought that it was because she hadn't grown up with them, and wasn't close to them. But now that she thought about it, perhaps they already knew that she wasn't Su Han's daughter. In other words, it had nothing to do with them. That was why they hated and distanced themselves from him, right? She suddenly felt that her life was full of mysteries. Su Han Rong Xian Song Yifan Sherwan Mountain. Don't even think about it. Whether your mother is Rong Xian or Su Han, a woman who can throw such a young child into an orphanage is not a good mother. And a man who can't even protect his wife can't be a good father. Su Qianxi heard that and nodded. So you don't need parents. You just need to know that you have a good husband. Wan Lily. Qianqian, how does it feel to be liked by the man you've had a crush on for 2 lifetimes? Su Qianxi, it feels like a dream. Chapter 181. You just need to know that you have a good husband. And you can, good husband. Su Qianxi suddenly understood, and looked up at him. She thought that these 2 words were so far away. But now, her husband was right in front of her, in the same room as her. There was no disgust or rejection. He was still him, indifferent, noble, and unparalleled. He told her that she had a good husband. Her eyes were slightly wet, and Su Qianxi suddenly felt the satisfaction of years of obsession coming true. The surprise came too fast, too sudden, and she had not fully accepted it. Li Xiqing saw her slightly wet eyes, and his eyes darkened. He said in a low voice, "Seducing me?" He reached out and took away the cup of warm water in her hand. Li Xiqing squeezed his thigh between hers and pushed her down. Su Qianxi was shocked. Facing his burning eyes, she timidly said, "I did not." How did she seduce him? She clearly did not do anything. Seeing her scared look, the heat in his eyes gradually faded. He pulled her up and asked, "Why are you afraid of me?" Every single time, he could see the frightened look on her face. At first, he thought it was quite fun. But later, he found that she was not pretending but really scared. Was he scary? Or could it be that he had done something so outrageous that she would be so afraid when she saw him? "I did not," Su Qianxi weakly denied. Li Xiqing saw her averting eyes and looked away. His voice was a bit cold as he said, "I don't want to have a wife with a heart disease when I'm not old yet." "That's right." Su Qianxi was a bit confused, looking at him with her dark eyes. "So don't be afraid of me." Su Qianxi blushed, unable to suppress the happiness, and nodded. Okay. It was the first time that Li Xiqing had seen such a delicate look. It turned out that she was like this. So beautiful. Holding the back of her head with his big hand, he took her lips in his mouth and sucked on them gently. Su Qianxi's heart was pounding, and her body was a bit weak. Soon she fell onto the bed. With the weight of two people, the soft bed gently shook. Gently and awkwardly, she put her arms around his waist and closed her eyes. She was so nervous that she trembled. Li Xiqing noticed her response, and a hint of desire flashed in his eyes. He leaned down and deepened the kiss that he had only intended to kiss her lightly. His kiss was wanton and unrestrained. He easily pried open her lips and teeth, and deeply captured her little tongue that had curled up in fear. He sucked on it firmly, and hugged her even tighter with his arms. But very quickly he let go of her, his breathing a little hurried. "Breathe, idiot." Su Qianxi felt a little suffocated. Hearing that, she let out a sigh of relief and took a deep breath. Her cheeks were pink, and her pitch-black eyes were watery as she looked at him. Loose strands of hair fell from her forehead, and her black hair and fair face formed a strong visual impact. Naked seduction. Li Xiqing only felt a spark suddenly rising. With the rise and fall of the breath of the person under him, it gradually turned into a raging fire, out of control. Lowering his head, he kissed her lips again, but this time, he was not satisfied with just a kiss. Chapter 182. Feeling his big hand lifting the hem of her dress, she suddenly woke up and pressed his big hand. Li Xiqing paused and looked up at her, breathing a little fast. His wet red lips looked wild and tempting. He slightly stuck out his tongue and licked them. Su Qianxi suddenly felt her head buzzing and couldn't help but clamp her legs. However, they were tightly wrapped around his strong thighs. Li Xiqing's reaction was even more intense. Su Qianxi could clearly see the desire on his face. Blushing, she said in a low voice, "Mr. Li, don't do red light." "Red light challenge?" Li Xiqing was dazed for a second, but soon realized what she meant. His red lips were tightly pursed. His soft face suddenly became tense and restrained. He gritted his teeth and said, "Why do women have this thing?" Su Qianxi said, "Without this thing, we can't have children." Hearing that, Li Xiqing's expression softened a little. He looked down and said, "Yes, for our children." "Our children." Su Qianxi thought of the child who died before she had time to discover it, and felt a bit sad. Li Xiqing glanced at her face and continued calmly, "I want 2 children, a girl and a boy. Together they make up a good family." "How can you have whatever you want? Now we have family planning. The 2-child policy has been implemented. You can have 2 children. But up until now, they hadn't done anything. Could it be that he was thinking too early? Besides, she was still in school. She did not want to drop out of school because of pregnancy and end up being despised by everyone like in her previous lifetime. That feeling was really not good. "I feel so bad." Li Xiqing looked like he was trying to hold back. Holding her hand, he touched his lower body. Su Qianxi was burned through his pants. She quickly closed her eyes and looked away. "You, go take a shower. When I'm better then." "Do it again," however. Was this an invitation? Woo. Would he think that she was too unreserved? However, it seemed that she had no other choice. She wanted to urge him to hurry up and take a shower, But her little hand was held again. Her fingers were pinched, holding a small metal object. With a slight sound, she heard the sound of a belt buckle being unbuckled. Startled, she opened her eyes and saw him holding her hand to help pull up the zipper of his pants. "Ayu, help me, wife." Wifey, the casual title hit her heart the softest part. He took off his casual shirt, revealing a pair of dark boxer shorts. In the middle of his pants, there was a huge bulge hidden, full of explosive power. Ah! She quickly closed her eyes and turned her head, not daring to look at him. How terrifying! How did she get in with such an exaggerated thing? Her part. Wasn't it crushed? He bent down and stroked her hand down, whispering, "Good girl, open your eyes." She shook her head again and again, insisting on not opening her eyes. The warmth from her palm made her heart beat faster. Chapter 183. Su Qianxi did not dare to open her eyes, but the burning sensation on her hand made her blush. Quietly, she opened her eyes a little. Through her blurry vision, she saw his neat upper body. Li Xiqing's face was covered with a thin layer of sweat, and the blue veins on his temples were throbbing. "Sit up." Su Qianxi's head buzzed, and she closed her eyes again, not wanting to look at him. Where was he supposed to be aloof and noble? Why was he so promiscuous now? He wanted her to help him with her hand. That was so exciting. Su Qianxi could not accept it. However, her hand was held by him, and she could not get rid of it. She clearly felt her hand being pulled away from the thin layer of cloth. Something suddenly popped out and hit her hand. The scorching heat made her want to escape subconsciously. However, he grabbed her hand and gently let her hand to hold that. The room was full of charm. When it ended, it was almost 8 o'clock, and the sky outside was completely dark. Su Qianxi felt her hand was so sore that it was about to break. She looked at him with tears in her eyes and pursed her lips. He gave her a deep kiss on the corner of her lips before he walked into the bathroom. Su Qianxi's hand was sore and painful. Seeing the mess on the bed, she called the internal line for room service. After changing the sheets, he had already walked out of the bathroom. His body was hot and wet, but his temperament was cold. Su Qianxi saw him and blushed again. She lowered her head and was about to run into the bathroom. Li Xiqing curled his lips and pulled her back. She became even more nervous and turned her head to look at him. What's wrong? Let's go eat later." "Yeah." She blushed and threw his hand away, walking into the bathroom. After the shower, she found that she did not bring any clothes. She struggled in front of the mirror for a moment, before weakly opening the door a little. She called out, Mr. Li, can you get me a set of clothes?" There was no response. Was he not there? She called again, "Mr. Li?" After the second sound, there was finally a slight noise outside. Li Xiqing's cold voice came over. "Change the way you address me." Hearing that name, she paused and thought for a moment. Li Xiqing? Xiqing? Still not enough? Then there was only that left. Su Qianxi blushed and said in a low voice, "Honey, I didn't hear you." The voice was a little lazy, and there seemed to be a hint of a smile in it. Su Qianxi blushed even more and summoned her courage. "Honey. What are you doing? Help me get some clothes." Before he could finish his words, a large hand holding a set of clothes stuffed into the room. She had a white dress and underwear, and on top of that, there was a sanitary pad. She was so embarrassed that she wanted to die. Hiding at the door, she grabbed the clothes and slammed the door shut. Li Xiqing laughed. It seemed that this feeling was pretty good. After cleaning herself up, she went downstairs. Grandpa was already sitting in the dining room, reading the newspaper and eating. "Qianqian, Grandpa ordered your favorite steak for you." "Thank you, Grandpa." Su Qianxi picked up the knife and fork, but found that her right hand was a bit numb, and the knife suddenly slipped from her hand. The knife fell on the glass table, making a crisp sound. Grandpa was startled. "What's wrong?" Chapter 184. Su Qianxi blushed even more. Lowering her head, she picked up the knife and pinched his thigh with her other hand. Li Xiqing did not move, as if he did not feel the pain. He calmly asked the waiter to change the knife for her. Why are your hands sore all of a sudden? Captain Lee was puzzled. In the afternoon. Eat. Su Qianxi grabbed a piece of bread and stuffed it into his mouth. She couldn't have looked more guilty. Old Master Li was also an experienced person. Seeing her like that, he knew that his grandson must have done something terrible. His pair of old eyes glanced at the young couple in front of him, and he chuckled. Inexplicably, Su Qianxi felt blood rushing to her head, and her brain was buzzing. What did Grandpa mean? Could it be that he could even know what it meant? Ah, so embarrassing. Li Xiqing took a bite of the bread in his mouth and continued. We went to the barbecue in the afternoon. It's inevitable that we are a bit tired. Oh, Captain Li looked enlightened and looked at Su Qianxi. It's just a barbecue. Why are you so shy? Did something happen during the barbecue? Nothing happened during the barbecue. But after the barbecue, Su Qianxi silently lowered her head and cut the steak. However, her right hand was a bit sore and weak. After a long time, she only cut a few small pieces. He took the steak in front of her and handed it to her. His voice was cold and extremely calm. Eat more to replenish your strength. We'll continue tonight. Su Qianxi nodded. Let's continue. Su Qianxi's hand trembled and almost dropped the fork. Facing Grandpa's curious gaze, she awkwardly stretched out her leg and kicked him. Continue at night. Continue my ass. You're King having fun. But my hands are so sore. Li Xiqing's expression did not change. Looking at Grandpa, who was eager to gossip, he said, Don't get involved in young people's business. Are you full? No. Captain Li said. Even if you don't tell me, I know. Then let's eat. Okay. After the meal, Su Qianxi did not dare to speak again. After eating, Grandpa expressed his interest in night fishing. The two accompanied their grandfather to go fishing. After playing for more than an hour, the old man was a little tired. After sending Grandpa back to his room, when he was about to open the door, Su Qianxi had already slipped away. Su Qianxi thought he did not notice her, turned around and walked away quietly. Why are you running? An indifferent and cold voice sounded, causing her back to stiffen. Go back to sleep, it's late. In the end, he added, just sleep. Oh, Su Qianxi blushed and walked back, saying, In fact, I just want to see what else is fun, not run away. Yes, I believe you. Li Xiqing's lips curled slightly, but it was so faint that she did not notice it at all. Hearing what he said, she felt even more embarrassed. As soon as the door opened, she went straight into the bathroom. After washing up and changing into pajamas, she went around Li Xiqing and lay on the bed, covering her head with the blanket. Before she knew it, she fell asleep. She did not know how long she had slept, but her body felt like it was on fire. A fire was burning on her body. Occasionally it would burn her waist, her face, her chest, and her legs. Wan Lily. Qian, be careful. Don't sleep too deeply with a man. Don't sleep too deeply. Don't sleep too deeply. Chapter 185. She opened her eyes in a daze. The room was so dark that there was no light at all. An arm was draped over her upper body, which made her arm a bit numb. She turned her body slightly, moved his arm away, and turned over to look at his deep and distinct facial features. Li Xiqing was breathing evenly, looking like he was sleeping soundly. She reached out and touched the tip of his nose. Her fingertip slowly slid up, down the bridge of his nose, to his eyes, his eyebrows, and finally his eyelashes. Li Xiqing's eyelashes were very long. He had never used eyeliner, but his eyelashes were dark and fascinating. Although the light was dim, Su Qianxi could still see his thick eyeliner and long eyelashes with his eyes closed. Looking down, her fingertip also fell on his lips. It was slippery, thin, and tender. It feels so good, Su Qianxi murmured. When she took her hand away, she saw his lips slightly curled up. Su Qianxi was shocked and quickly closed her eyes, pretending to be asleep. Li Xiqing opened his eyes, dark and bright. He did not look like he was asleep at all. Seeing Su Qianxi pretending to be asleep, he tightened his arms and whispered in her ear. It tastes good. Do you want to confirm it? Su Qianxi's hand under the quilt suddenly grabbed the bedsheet. She felt like she had been caught doing something bad. Whatever, she was asleep and did not hear it. Seeing that she did not respond, Li Xiqing whispered again. Asleep? Then he moved away slightly. Su Qianxi let out a sigh of relief. But before she could completely relax, she felt a weight on her, and was kissed on her lips. She suddenly opened her eyes and saw that Li Xiqing had laid back down, eyes closed, and did not say a word. Su Qianxi was too shy to show her face. Slightly moving away from him, she wanted to stay away from him, but Li Xiqing's arms tightened even more, and his thighs pinned her in his arms. Be quiet when you sleep. Li Xiqing said this without blushing or panting. His big hand quickly moved from her shoulder to her waist. Su Qianxi suddenly realized that the fire she had felt in her sleep had come from this. He curled his lips and muttered, I wonder who's the dishonest one. I can be even more dishonest. Hearing Li Xiqing's cold voice, she immediately became quiet, closed her eyes, and let him hold her, not daring to move. Su Qianxi's sleep had always been fast, and she soon fell asleep again. She did not notice that the man next to her was suffering until dawn. As soon as he woke up, he received a call from Kingstown. It was Luihan. Glancing at Li Xiqing, who was still asleep, she silently walked into the bathroom to answer the phone. Hello. Qianqian, when are you coming back? What's the date today? 6. Oh, tomorrow. What's wrong? Big news. The day after tomorrow is Lin Wanting's wedding. Did you know? Oh, number 8, right? I know. She sent me an invitation a long time ago. Do you want to go? Why should I go? You Lily said that she would definitely go. She asked me to inform you and pull you along. Okay, I won't go. Last time, if she had not reacted fast enough, she would have been treated like that by Ding Haiba. Why should she give face to such a person? She knew very well how valuable the title of Mrs. Li was. I see. One more thing about your husband. Chapter 186. Well. Luihan stuttered, as if he was too embarrassed to speak. Luihan rarely acted like this. Could it be that he had discovered Li Xiqing's secret? Su Qianxi felt uneasy and yelled, Speak. I heard that your husband is going to host a cocktail party, and will invite a lot of big names and famous people. I was thinking. Hearing that, Su Qianxi let out a sigh of relief. I thought it was something big. Just a small thing. A small thing? Yeah. For him and his company, it was a big thing for the rest of his life. If he could attend, even if he just showed his face, it would be a great honor. Moreover, he was going to do more than just show his face. If he could pull in an investment or make a friend, he would be able to rise to the top easily. Although Luihan was a nerd, he had a high EQ, and had always been good at socializing. Maybe he could really fool some people. I see. I will send you an invitation. Su Qianxi chuckled. Did you know that this cocktail party is actually my meeting? Grandpa. He did it for me. Luihan gasped on the other end of the phone. What the hell? Did it for you? Such a big cocktail party? Just for you to meet him? Su Qianxi blinked and asked. Is it very big? Of course. From international well-known enterprises to large domestic companies, there are also many well-known figures in other fields, such as Kingstown's new IT expert Luo Zhan, or City C's young master O Ming, or the representative of the music family, such as. So big. Su Qianxi really had no idea. Thinking of what had happened yesterday, she said, if we can also invite Song Yifun's band, will it be even bigger? Song Yifun's band? OMG, Luihan exclaimed. That is not a band that can be hired with money. Your husband is so awesome. It's just SOO. Although she said that, she had already curled her lips and looked into the mirror. The girl in the mirror was dressed in a white silk nightgown, and her eyes were tinged with pride and satisfaction, as well as happiness. She was dazed and quickly looked at herself in the mirror, but she still felt so happy. F***ck. Luihan was a little angry. I don't care. I have to go that day. I want to announce to the world that Mrs. Li is a good friend of my Luihan. It's only worthwhile to get some attention from her. Fine, I'll let you rub. She chuckled. That's enough. I need to freshen up. Bye. Bye-bye. After hanging up the phone, washing up and going out, it was almost 9 o'clock. Sitting on the bed, Li Xiqing had a cigarette between his long fingers. A third of the ash had been burned, and it was hanging down. She quickly took the ashtray and waved her long finger in front of him. What's wrong? Li Xiqing looked up, his eyes cold and sharp. Who are you talking to? Su Qianxi was caught off guard and knew that he must have thought too much. She explained, It's Luihan. So honest. Li Xiqing was a bit surprised and looked at her. You should know that he and I developed a music software together. He wants to attend the party on the 15th on behalf of our company. Is that okay? You want him to come? He is my good friend. Of course I want him to come. Chapter 187. Are you sure we are just good friends? These words were obviously not quite right. Su Qianxi's heart skipped a beat. She leaned over and put her hands on his shoulders. What do you think is my relationship with him? Li Xiqing was speechless. He still cared about the green hat last time. Therefore, when she had a miscarriage, he deliberately let Lu Yihan spend time with her alone. Although he felt sad and did not feel good, he had helped them, right? Hearing her question, Li Xiqing did not speak. He slowly put the cigarette to his lips, took a puff, and slowly exhaled the white smoke. I have not had many friends since I was a kid. Yeah. He knew that with her IQ and EQ, it would be impossible for her to have any friends. I used to think that Lu Anan was a good friend, but she ruined everything. That was something that happened in her previous life. Only in this life did she realize that what she thought was what she thought. It wasn't real. I used to think that Lin Wanting was my good friend. Later, I realized how silly I was. Indeed, it was quite silly. Those two people didn't look like good people at first glance. Li Xiqing's cold eyes glanced over. Only Lu Yihan was my classmate in middle school and high school. We were deskmates for many years, and he has always been nice to me. His indifferent eyes gradually became cold and sinister. Su Qianxi's heart raced and she said nervously, But friendship is everything, and we are not yet lovers. Friendship is everything, and we are not yet lovers. Who could guarantee that? Their relationship was really too good. If you do not like him, I will try to keep a distance from him. Su Qianxi felt wronged and looked at him carefully. In the future, except for work, try not to have anything to do with him. How about that? He put out the cigarette and squinted at her. He is not yet lovers. What about me? Well, Su Qianxi looked at his face, pretended to hesitate and giggled. You are not yet lovers. Li Xiqing smiled, put his arms around her waist, and let her sit on his lap. Kiss me, but you have not brushed your teeth yet. Dislike. Seeing his dangerous and threatening eyes, Su Qianxi couldn't resist him and kissed him on the lips. That's it. What else? This is a kiss, not a kiss. Su Qianxi blushed. Thinking of how he kissed her, she slowly leaned over and gently kissed his lips. His lips thin, cool, and smooth. The texture was really good. He sucked lightly, his movements jerky and careful. However, it made Li Xiqing very uncomfortable. His large hands grabbed her head and forcefully deepened the kiss. He pried open her lips and teeth, robbing all the air in her mouth. It was rare that Su Qianxi did not struggle at all. She put her arms around his neck and responded. However, this jerky movement was more like a spark that lit the fuse. Just as he was about to lose control, he abruptly stopped. She gasped, looking at him with a blushing face and blurred eyes. He kissed the corner of her lips and said, I'll take you to play something fun later. Fun? Yes, although not as fun as sex. Chapter 188. Li Xiqing said it was fun, and it was really exciting and fun. The breeze blew her hair, and her long, straight hair was tied up. Blushing, she stared down. Looking down from the sky, she felt that her whole body was shaking, but it was also exciting. Ah, what should we do? Will we fall to our deaths? What if we fall to our deaths? Li Xiqing curled his lips and said calmly, No, I will be the last one for you. A staff member standing next to him asked, Are you ready? Yes. Brave girl, protect the Goodlet lady, sir. Li Xiqing turned his face and saw her excited and scared face. His heart softened and he said, Yes. Oh, I'm so scared. It's so exciting, Mr. Li. What did you call me? Li. Honey. Ah. Su Qianxi did not dare to open her eyes. and the horrible feeling of falling made her extremely uneasy. Her body trembled even more, and she did not dare to open her eyes. Wow! A faint sound was heard, and the two of them were caught in midair, reducing the extent of their fall. A big hand held her arm, and a cold and magnetic voice came to her ear. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." This voice had an inexplicable soothing power. Su Qianxi's body gradually stopped shaking, and she opened her eyes boldly. Turning her head, she saw the man next to her against the light. Still cold, still calm. His face was so calm that it seemed that he was not flying in the sky. Feeling a bit embarrassed, she did not know how much impact her appearance had on the seemingly calm man in front of her. Her delicate and pretty little face, in the broken mottled sunlight, seemed to be plated with a layer of golden light, sacred and white, inviolable. One glance, 10,000 years. Su Qianxi looked away from his burning eyes, and soon her eyes lit up, shouting excitedly, "It's so beautiful! Look, look!" Li Xiqing looked away, and with a shallow smile, his eyes fell on the beautiful scenery that amazed her. The winding mountain range, the blue sea and the blue sky, the seagulls flapping their wings, flying against the wind with their backs to them. The faint white hazy fog obstructed their vision, covering the already majestic and boundless world with a layer of mystery. This was a majestic sight that could not be described by all the thick brush strokes and ink in huaxia. At this moment, everything was under their feet. "It was beautiful," Li Xiqing replied. "Yes, it is." However, no matter how great the rivers and mountains were, they were not as good as a beauty's smile. Su Qianxi did not hear his voice, looking down in fascination. This was the first time she had seen such scenery. In both her past and present lives, this was the first time she had traveled, and this was the first time she had experienced such magnificence. What was even more unexpected was that the person next to her was Li Xiqing. If it was in the past, he wouldn't even dare to dream about it. But now, unknowingly, it had become a reality. "Wifey." His voice was low and mellow, and it was blown into her ears by the wind. Su Qianxi was still a bit unfamiliar with this form of address. Dazed for 2 seconds, she suddenly came to herself and turned to look at him. But before she could take a closer look, her red lips were sealed. The ice-cold sensation caused her to widen her eyes in disbelief. "High in the sky kiss. Wan Lily. These chapters are so sweet that my heart is about to explode. Do you like it?" Li Xiqing, yes. Chapter 189. Suddenly a light flashed in front of her. Su Qianxi blinked and saw it was a drone. Ah, it seemed to have been taken. So embarrassing. However, being kissed in the air was so exciting. Su Qianxi's heart was pounding, and she felt that her body was falling. Gradually, she landed on a large open space, and the parachute on top of her head was covering her. However, Li Xiqing still had no intention of letting go. Licking her pink lips with the tip of his tongue, Li Xiqing smacked his lips and slowly began to take off the equipment. And Su Qianxi blushed and stood there, not knowing what to do for a moment. Good. A foreigner walked over with a tablet. This is so romantic. Su Qianxi looked at the tablet. On the screen, a man was kissing a woman, and the woman widened her eyes and looked incredulous. The photo slid down, and the woman's face became redder and redder. Su Qianxi blushed even more and said, "How can you take photos? This is a feature of our tribe. We will use drones to capture your reactions and status at any time in case of accidents. At the same time, we will record every beautiful moment for you." Li Xiqing reached out and took off the equipment for Su Qianxi, then looked at the foreigner. "Can you give me the photos?" "No. They are so ugly. Delete them." Su Qianxi looked at herself in the photos. Several of them were completely distorted and ugly. How could such a photo be left behind? However, the foreigner ignored Su Qianxi's protest and looked directly at Li Xiqing. "Of course, but there is a charge. Which one do you want?" "All of them." The foreigner was overjoyed. There were at least a few thousand photos in this set of photos from the top to the bottom. The price was very expensive. It was not that he had never met rich people before. But this man did not even ask before taking all of them. This was the first time. Okay, then wait a moment. I will print out the photos for you. but there are a lot of photos, so it may take a while. Leave your address, and I will send them to you after I print them. Li Xiqing nodded and wrote down his hotel room number on the tablet. Su Qianxi pouted, feeling a bit depressed. What a terrible photographer. He made her look so ugly. Seeing her expression, Li Xiqing did not speak. He took her hand and was about to walk to the cable car station. Let's go eat. Hey, wait! The foreigner from earlier rushed over again, with 2 pieces of paper in his hand. When he arrived in front of them, he was already panting. My wife likes these 2 pieces of paper, so I washed them first to give them to you. Here, take them. Su Qianxi took it, and the depression in her heart was gone. In the first photo, a man and a woman were on a parachute. The woman's ponytail was fluttering in the wind, looking a little messy. From the angle of the photo, one could only see the woman's long and thick eyelashes, and a small portion of her fair face. The man's face was slightly slanted, his facial features perfect. His eyes were closed, but there was an indescribable sense of gentleness. Was this really Li Xiqing? He actually had such a side to him. What made her feel like she was in a dream was that the person he was facing was actually herself. Chapter 190. The other photo was also in the air, but the angle had been completely changed. In the photo, she was looking at him in shock. From this angle, they could see each other's eyelashes, lips and nose, blocking her from the view. Only her blushing face could be seen. What should she do? She felt like she was going to heaven. Staring at the photo, Su Qianxi's smile gradually widened. Her face was blushing, and her eyebrows were brimming with happiness. Do you like it? Yes. She liked both of them very, very much. They were not only 2 photos, but also a dream that she had had for 2 lifetimes. Now the dream had finally come true. She did not notice the smile on Li Xiqing's face. He said, "If you like it, then kiss me a few more times." Su Qianxi heard that, and immediately looked up. Seeing the people around her, she quickly ran away. Li Xiqing's smile widened, and he reached out to her. Let's go eat. However, Su Qianxi stared at his lips, a bit dazed. He was smiling. She rubbed her eyes, thinking she had seen it wrong. However, when she calmed down, it was still the same smile. Seeming to have noticed her attention, Li Xiqing's smile suddenly disappeared. He pretended to be unhappy and asked, "What's wrong? You look so good when you smile. Smile again." The remaining smile on Li Xiqing's face completely disappeared, and he was speechless. "Smile again. You look so good when you smile. What a waste." Li Xiqing didn't know what to say and walked forward. Su Qianxi quickly caught up with him, going from his left to his right. "I haven't seen enough yet." Li Xiqing was speechless. Going from his right to his left, she begged, "Mr. Li Xiqing, honey." Li Xiqing finally could not bear it anymore. He pulled her over and held her in his arms, whispering, "Be quiet." She wanted him to smile, and he would smile just because she wanted him to? You have to know that smiling also requires feeling. Su Qianxi was suddenly hugged, so she immediately shut up. She struggled but could not move. Li Xiqing looked down at her and took her to the cable car station. The skydiving location was some distance away from the bottom of the island. There was a cable car that could reach the bottom of the island. On the cable car, Su Qianxi was let go of. She carefully put the 2 photos in her hand into her pocket. After making sure that they were safe, she looked out the window. In the Maldives, it was like spring all year round. It was said that the surrounding scenery was the same all year round and would never change much. The azure blue ocean below was connected to a large green area. Seagulls spread their wings and flew high. The pedestrians below were like ants. Su Qianxi was almost leaning against the window, looking down at everything. When the cable car was almost at the station, she reluctantly looked away. But when she turned around, she was caught off guard to find that the man was looking at her from the side. His deep, pitch-black eyes were unwavering. His heartbeat suddenly began to accelerate. Had he been watching her all this time? In his mind, he suddenly thought of a sentence from Broken Chapter. You stand on the bridge and look at the scenery, but the person who is looking at the scenery is looking at you from above. But could she have also decorated his dream? Wan Lily. Some readers say that you are too sweet, so I plan to torture you. What do you want to say? Li Xiqing, why don't you try? Wan Lily. Lost in thought. Broken chapter by Bien Jeline. You look at the scenery on the bridge. The person who is looking at you from above the moon decorates your window. Chapter 191. After getting off the cable car, Su Qianxi couldn't help but let her imagination run wild. Her face was blushing, and she did not say a word while being held by Li Xiqing. Seeing her look, Li Xiqing's eyes, which had always been cold and deep, softened slightly. Boss, a familiar female voice said. Su Qianxi looked over and saw it was Chengyu. Seeing Su Qianxi's surprised eyes, Chengyu smiled. Long time no see, madam. Well, madam. Su Qianxi also smiled back and turned to look at the man next to her. Done. Yes, I have almost checked what you asked me to. It is not much different from what you expected, but... Chengyu paused and looked at Su Qianxi, hesitating. Su Qianxi was not stupid and said, I will go back and change first. You guys talk first. Okay. Li Xiqing rubbed her hair. Be careful. Su Qianxi nodded, feeling a little disappointed. Although she was the one who proposed to go first, she still felt a little upset that Li Xiqing agreed so easily. Why did she feel that they were going to tell her some big secrets? Let's go to the coffee shop, boss. Okay. After Su Qianxi returned to the room, she was not in a hurry to get changed. Instead, she picked up her phone and scrolled through Weibo. After playing for 10 minutes, she felt a little bored. Swiping her finger, she typed 3 words, Li Xiqing. The first hot topic was, Li Xiqing holds a luxury cocktail party, and all the industry leaders are scrambling to go, spending a lot of money just for a girl. It was very eye-catching and very high profile. She glanced at the time, and it turned out to be 3 days ago. And she only learned about it yesterday. Was he trying to surprise her? Su Qianxi felt sweet, and rolled on the bed with the phone in her arms. Thinking of how Li Xiqing kissed her, she couldn't help blushing again. Besides, she was here helping him yesterday afternoon. That scene seemed to be poisoned, lingering in his mind without dissipating. Her arms still seemed to be sore. She rubbed them and buried her face in the pillow, trying to drive away those evil images. Oh, go away. Ding dong. A WeChat message came in. It was from Yu Lily. Louis Han and Yu Lily were sitting and eating. Yu Lily was smiling happily, but Louis Han looked a little helpless. What does that mean? Is Yu Lily demonstrating to me? But what about Ming? Looking at this picture, Su Qianxi had an ominous feeling. I'm afraid Yu Lily will be out of luck. Bang bang. There was a knock on the door. She put away her phone and opened the door, but it was not Li Xiqing. Instead, it was a short-haired woman holding a large gift box, dressed in fashionable clothes, somewhat similar to Chengyu. However, she was not disappointed but shocked. You are Sunny. She was very surprised that the lady boss knew her. She didn't expect that her fame had already reached the lady boss's level. It felt pretty good. Su Qianxi was a bit shocked. If she remembered correctly, this Sunny would become one of the top magicians in the makeup industry in 3 or 4 years, truly turning something rotten into something magical. Chapter 192. Letting Sunny do whatever he wanted. Su Qianxi watched her hair being let down, tossed around, and finally, even her shirt was taken off. Sunny looked at her chest in amazement. Wow, this chest shape is simply amazing. It's so beautiful. Su Qianxi was speechless. Instinctively, he hugged his chest to block her view. Although Li Xiqing looked like a woman, it seemed that she was gay. Sunny did not notice, and excitedly took out a brand new bra from her bag and shouted, "Put it on. It's super tight and super sexy." Seeing Su Qianxi did not move, Sunny shouted again, "Come on, let me help you." Su Qianxi quickly blocked her hand and smiled awkwardly. "I can do it myself." Clearly aware of Su Qianxi's rejection, Sunny muttered to herself, "You are really as cold as the boss. Wait, there is also this, put it on together." Ah! Su Qianxi looked at the clothes in front of her. One was red, one was light gold, and one was aqua green. They all looked very nice, but she couldn't wear all of them. "Let's go with this one. Your skin is so white and good. Red is the best." Sunny gave her the red one. "Come on, be beautiful." When Su Qianxi went in, Sunny began to complain. It would be strange if she was not beautiful. The gown was custom designed by Li Siqing more than a month in advance. The designer was an international designer from Milan, using the best spinning materials. Just these clothes alone cost tens of millions. That was the Li's financial group. If it was another company, it would be the funds for several projects. Thinking of this, Sunny was sad and angry again. Why? The boss's wife's life was so good, she had a handsome and rich man who was so good to her, sob. Ah, different people have different lives. She grabbed the mineral water she brought, unscrewed the cap, and took a sip. The door of the bathroom opened, and Su Qianxi walked out weakly, looking a bit embarrassed. Sunny turned around, and with just one glance, her eyes were filled with strong amazement. Sunny was dazed for 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Oh my God! Sunny put down the bottle and immediately rushed over. F***ck. Aw, come here, let me see. Sunny walked around and found that the clothes fit unexpectedly. In other words, the sewing bag she brought to change the clothes was completely useless. Isn't this a little too revealing? No. Your sphincter and collarbone are so beautiful, of course I have to show them. Oh dear. She deserved to have different fates. Not only was the lady boss beautiful, but she also had a good temperament. Even international models could not get the feeling Li Siqing wanted. Everyone thought that no one could get the feeling Li Siqing wanted. Unexpectedly, this was the real design. It was clearly tailor-made for the lady boss. Oh my God, Sai, why do I look so ugly and have such a bad figure? I don't even have any temperament. You make me feel inferior. Su Qianxi was a bit embarrassed. You're exaggerating. Yes, he definitely had it. However, Sunny had already expressed that she did not want to talk and pushed Su Qianxi in front of the mirror. Stroking her hair, Sunny was even more sad and angry to find that the boss was not only beautiful, but also had a good figure and temperament. Even her skin was delicate and flawless. Chapter 193. She must make the ugliest look for the boss's wife. Full of grief and indignation, when she was about to stand up, she thought again. No, if she made the boss's wife prettier, could she ask for a bonus from her boss? Yes, a bonus. Sunny jumped to his feet. He was in high spirits. Su Qianxi had no idea what she had experienced in less than 10 seconds. Seeing her frustrated and excited expression, she felt a bit strange. At that time, it was rumored that Sunny had a mental problem. She did not expect it to be true. What a pity. Noticing Su Qianxi's sympathetic gaze, Sunny did not know that she had been regarded as a psychopath. He cleaned, put on makeup and styled her. When it was done, it had been almost an hour. Su Qianxi was a bit tired, but when Sunny moved away from the mirror and saw herself in the mirror, she was amazed. Seeing her expression, Sunny said proudly, "Oh, I'm so good. I'm so beautiful." Was this really her? The facial features were still the same, but with a little makeup, they looked more delicate. But it made people feel like they were two different people. Before makeup, she was gentle and lovely. Then after makeup, she was mature and intellectual. Beautiful. So beautiful that Su Qianxi almost suffocated herself. It was hard to believe that this person would be herself. Her hair was coiled up, and the hair on her forehead was combed up. A strand of hair hung down on both sides, curled into loose waves. Simple and elegant. Come on, stand up. Sunny patted her twice, tidied up her dress and whistled. Impeccable. Then, his eyes glanced at her empty neck and wrists, and finally fell on her ears. You are just missing a few pieces of jewelry. Otherwise, you would be even more beautiful. Jewelry, I have it. It was just that she did not like to wear it. It doesn't matter. You can wear it without it. Sunny glanced at his watch with a smile. It's almost time. I'll take you down. To where? To your husband. Sunny was really looking forward to what her boss, who had always been cold and calm, would look like. Li Siqing looked at the information she brought over and frowned. That's it. Chengyu nodded. A lot of things seemed to be deliberately cut off and disturbed. I ran all over Kingstown, and could only find these. The director of the orphanage recognized Madame as the woman from back then. It is certain that Rong Xian is Madame's mother, but... She took out a document and put it in front of him. Mr. Song and Madam are not related by blood. What about Sheng Ximing? Cheng Yu was stunned. You mean, try it. Oh, okay. If that was the case, then it would be too messy. Song Yifan and Sheng Ximing were good friends, and they both liked the same woman. That woman's daughter might not be Song Yifan's, but Sheng Ximing's. It's about time, boss. Yes. The two of them walked out of the coffee shop one after the other, and met an acquaintance at the door. Song Yifan looked at Li Xiqing with surprise in his eyes, but he quickly said, "Can we talk?" Li Xiqing looked at him calmly, raising an eyebrow. Chapter 194. When Su Qianxi was driven to the destination by Sunny, it was already 6 p.m. As soon as she got out of the car, she was surrounded by a lot of people. This was the first time that Su Qianxi had attracted so many people's attention. Although she was not a bad person, she still felt a little embarrassed. However, no matter how nervous she was, she had to be natural. Su Qianxi had a smile on her lips, light but just right. A little more flirtatious, and a little less aloof. But at this moment, she was low-key and luxuriously beautiful like the girl next door. Slender and elegant and devastatingly beautiful. Sunny watched enviously from behind, but quickly let her in. This was a restaurant under the sea. It was the first time that Su Qianxi had been to such a place. She walked up the stairs, and soon passed through the long undersea tunnel. She was surrounded by romantic and deep blue, which was so beautiful that Su Qianxi was slightly dazed. Around her, there were fish constantly swimming. They seemed to have seen her, blowing bubbles and kissing the thick glass. Peaceful and romantic music overflowed, which was one of Song Yifan's most classic songs. Walking into the restaurant, the first thing she saw was a huge empty space with only one table. Blue and beautiful, the water rippled and rippled on her body, making her originally fair skin look even more flawless. On the table, pink candles were lit. Except for the light of the deep sea, there was no other light around. The sound of the piano became more and more soothing. The familiar melody seemed to be played by Song Yifan himself. The timbre was so real that she could not believe it. Sunny gently pushed her and said, "Mrs. President, sit down here. He will be here soon." Okay. However, before she knew it, Sunny was nowhere to be seen. Su Qianxi looked around, and found that the light was getting dimmer and dimmer. She stood up uneasily, but before she turned around, she was held by a pair of strong arms. Su Qianxi was scared and subconsciously struggled. However, the arms were more powerful, and a low voice sounded, "Sha, don't move." The familiar voice, and the familiar qi, she made Su Qianxi calm down, and let out a sigh of relief. "You scared me." Li Xiqing seemed to chuckle behind her. Immediately, her hand was held by him, and his cold hand slid over hers. Su Qianxi wanted to look down, but his big hand pinched her chin. "Don't move." Next, the earlobe. His movements were a little rusty, but they were very, very light. He's giving her earrings? Su Qianxi found it hard to believe. Then she felt a chill on her neck, and there was a heavy feeling on her ears and neck. The sound of the piano flowed slowly. However, at the turning point of the most familiar music, it suddenly became the happy birthday song that everyone was familiar with. The surrounding lights gradually lit up, and the rhythm of the piano gradually became cheerful. Then came the sounds of trumpets, violins, and harmonicas. As the lights came on, Su Qianxi looked around and saw an elegant middle-aged man sitting behind a black piano in the corner of the large space. Chapter 195. Today, Li Xiqing was dressed up, wearing a black tuxedo suit with a vintage pocket watch on his left chest. The chain was from left to right. He was tall and handsome. Standing in front of her, he was like a noble who had just walked out of the palace, incomparably dignified. Birthday? Su Qianxi was shocked. She really did not know that today was her birthday. Is it not? The date on your ID card, right? Li Xiqing frowned. God knows how long he had prepared for this, just to give her a surprise this time. Su Qianxi slowly shook her head and then nodded. Her eyes were slightly wet. I don't know. I have never had a birthday before. The date on my ID card was the day the director of the orphanage picked me up. Li Xiqing pursed his red lips and whispered, "This is your birthday. I will celebrate every birthday for you in the future. Su Qianxi looked up at the man in front of her, her heart racing. There was no expression on his face. He was so cold and calm that it was hard to believe what he just said came from his mouth. He was still himself, cold, noble, calm, and unapproachable. But why did he have to be so tempting? I will celebrate every birthday for you in the future. Every word was steady and powerful, and his voice was always cold. But when it came from his mouth, it was so passionate, so scorching. It was like a red-hot iron seal that was branded into the deepest part of her heart. In an instant, smoke billowed out, blurring her eyes. Her eyes were blurred. Looking at his serious and calm expression, she seemed to be sure and asked, "You just said in the future, each and every." Li Xiqing's eyes were blurred. "Yes, every birthday." His voice was firm, and his eyes were firm. Su Qianxi's heart began to race and tears fell. She stood on her tiptoes, spread her arms, and threw herself into his arms. Li Xiqing was dazed for a moment, but very quickly, his cold face softened, and he held her in his arms. "You said every birthday." "I said every birthday." She had never dreamed that she would hear him say something like that, and make a promise like that. Li Xiqing did not make promises easily, but once he did, he would not hesitate to go through fire and water. She knew that about him. She knew that about him too well. Her tears rubbed on his suit. She sniffed, and the bad habits of human beings were playing tricks in her heart. She looked up and met his deep eyes with her wet black eyes. She asked cautiously, "Today is my birthday, right?" "Yes." "Then if I want a birthday wish, you will grant it, right?" "Yes." Hearing his response, Su Qianxi let go of him and looked at him timidly, like a child asking for candy. She whispered, "Then you will only celebrate my birthday in the future, okay? Don't give it to other women, okay?" Li Xiqing was 188 centimeters, and she was 165 centimeters. She had to look up to him. As for him, he lowered his eyes and stared. Her heart was pounding. She knew that her request was too greedy. He was not her. She only had him, and he still had Tang Minjing, didn't he? She thought that he would not agree, or change the topic, or directly refuse. Chapter 196. It was just one word, but it was worth a lot. Su Qianxi burst into tears again and nodded. In the corner of the dining room, Old Master Li touched his chin with satisfaction. Sheng Ximing, who was right next to him, was secretly anxious. He shouted, "That girl is too naive. Doesn't she know that it's better to believe in ghosts than to believe in a man's words?" Hearing this, Old Master Li glared at him and slapped him on the head. "Who are you calling a grandson?" Sheng Ximing exclaimed. Your grandson, your grandson. You are the grandson." Captain Li was very upset and glared at him. Sheng Ximing felt like crying. Looking at the old man, he didn't know what to say. Old Master Li decided to ignore him and looked at his grandson's wife. Seeing that their relationship had improved by leaps and bounds, he was a little happy that he had deliberately tried to matchmake them. He said proudly, "Because he is my precious second grandson." Sheng Ximing was confused, but he did not expect that Captain Li's words would come true. Many years later, when Sheng Ximing talked to Su Qianxi about the past, she replied with a smile, "Because he is Li Xiqing." Because he was Li Xiqing, she believed him. The band around them accompanied them as they walked closer and closer. The band with blonde hair and blue eyes, each holding their own instruments, circled around them with happy smiles on their faces. The happy birthday song became more cheerful, but the sound of the piano gradually came to a stop. Song Yifan walked down from the grand piano and slowly walked up to Su Qianxi with a smile on his face. However, only he knew that the closer he got to Su Qianxi, the harder it was for him to maintain his smile. He was surrounded by unspeakable nervousness. This feeling was much more nervous than when he first participated in the international piano competition. Li Xiqing looked at him, and there was a glimmer of light in his dark eyes. Song Yifan looked at Su Qianxi's face, which was very similar to his lover's, and said, "Su Qianxi, today is not only your birthday but also mine." Su Qianxi was shocked. Thinking back, it seemed that today was indeed the day. What a coincidence. Song Yifan nodded with a smile, hands in front of him, feeling unspeakably nervous. Even Su Qianxi could clearly feel his nervousness and was a bit surprised. On such a day, can I ask you for a birthday wish? Me? Su Qianxi pointed at herself, feeling confused. She looked at Li Xiqing. However, the man wasn't surprised at all. He reached out and pushed her slightly, as if urging her to agree. Yes. All right. Song Yifan was one of her few idols. She was flattered that he would ask her for a birthday wish. Song Yifan's eyes became softer and softer. He said elegantly, I have no wife or children, and you have no parents. Now that I am old, I also want a child to accompany me. Will you be my daughter? His heart was in his throat. Be his daughter. Be Song Yifan's daughter? She stared at him, and found that he was not joking at all. Looking at Li Xiqing, she found that he still looked calm. You already knew? Yes. Chapter 197. No. Su Qianxi interrupted him. Song Yifan looked up at her. However, Su Qianxi was silent and did not answer. It doesn't matter, Li Xiqing said. It's up to you. Are you my father? I am actually Rong Xian's daughter, right? Su Qianxi asked. Song Yifan was silent for a second and said, I don't know. He did not dare to know. He knew that Li Xiqing had a DNA sample, but he did not want to see it. He did not dare to see it. Su Qianxi looked at Li Xiqing and asked, Really? Li Xiqing looked at her and did not answer. Su Qianxi's eyes dimmed, and she hesitated. This is too sudden. Can you let me think about it? Okay. Song Yifan smiled. He did not directly refuse, which was his biggest hope. He was satisfied. Sheng Ximing came over with a bottle of wine in his hand and said, Well, let's not talk about this for now. Today is your birthday. Let's open the champagne and celebrate. Then he pulled out the cork and spat out the champagne. Sheng Ximing poured the wine into the champagne tower on the table and quickly filled it up. Everyone had a glass. Come on, cheers. Captain Li was sitting in the corner. Unable to drink or do any strenuous exercise, he was extremely bored. He sighed and looked at the computer screen in front of him. He said to himself, It's such a good day. Of course, I need to play some classic music to liven things up. He tapped on the screen a few times and decisively clicked on a classic oldie. The sound system was turned on and began to buzz. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked in all directions. Su Qianxi looked around and finally found Captain Li in the corner. Smiling, she raised her glass and took a sip. The surroundings were elegant, the most romantic restaurant, and the tropical fishes were slowly jumping in all directions. It was quiet and beautiful. However, at this time, a joyous song immediately came from the sound system. Today is a good day. Everything you want can come true. Su Qianxi spat out the wine, and it all fell on Li Xiqing. Li Xiqing was speechless. Reaching out, he wiped the wine on his suit. But when he saw Su Qianxi laughing, he couldn't help but relax. He reached out and pulled her into his arms, letting her laugh and hit him as she pleased. Sheng Ximing and Song Yifan also laughed. The festive music continued. Captain Li even grabbed the microphone and sang happily. Everyone looked at each other and smiled. The originally romantic and cheerful happy birthday song stopped. As long as you're happy, it's fine, right? Su Qianxi drank a little too much. Her cheeks were flushed, and she stumbled as she walked. He held her hand and walked out of the underwater restaurant. The cool sea breeze made her feel more energetic. Can you still stand? Su Qianxi stood up and shouted. Yes. His voice was loud and clear, and he sounded slightly tipsy. Li Xiqing smiled and reached out to hold her in his arms. He whispered, Then I will take you to see the stars. Okay. Su Qianxi hugged his neck and looked at his handsome face with blurred eyes. Look at the stars, the shining stars? Yes. Su Qianxi's hands around his neck loosened, and she slowly slid down. He wanted to catch her, but the woman was like a loach, slipping and slipping. In the end, she directly hugged his waist and buried her face in his. Li Xiqing's body stiffened, and a wave of heat spread all over his body. I don't want to go anymore. Hold me. As he said that, he felt hot. Su Qianxi clearly felt something on her face and patted it discontentedly. What is it? It's so hard. Li Siqing's Adam's apple moved up and down, and his voice was low and husky. Get up. Chapter 198. Ouch. It hurts. Su Qianxi pouted. As her vocal cords vibrated, the hard object in front of her became more and more aggressive. Suddenly, Su Qianxi looked up, feeling wronged. Looking at the small tent that had suddenly been set up in front of her, she reached out her soft fingers and poked the most prominent tip. Li Siqing felt like he was about to burst into flames. He pulled her up and growled, "Behave yourself." Su Qianxi looked at him blankly. Seeing his fierce eyes because of his forbearance, she slightly opened her red lips and suddenly closed them. Pursing her lips, she said, "Why are you so fierce?" Seeing her like that, Li Siqing felt a bit of a headache. Taking a deep breath, he lifted her up. Su Qianxi exclaimed drunkenly, slapped his back with her hands and cried, "Li Siqing, what are you doing? I'm taking you back to sleep." No, I want to see the stars." "Stars? You said you would take me to see the stars." Sob. Li Siqing stopped and put her down. Su Qianxi immediately sat on the edge of the beach and did not want to stand up. She looked at him with her mouth pursed, as if she had suffered a great grievance. With tears in her eyes, she sniffed. Li Siqing felt his headache getting worse and said patiently, "Why are you looking at the stars when you're so drunk?" "I'm not drunk, not drunk." "Then who am I?" "Li Siqing." "Wrong." "What?" Su Qianxi was dazed. Looking at his face, she asked, "Then who are you?" "I'm your husband." Su Qianxi was dazed and responded blankly, "Oh, get up." "Okay." Su Qianxi got up from the beach. Her long red dress was lifted to her thighs. In the dim light, her skin was dazzling and exquisite. Li Siqing's mouth was dry, and his lower body was aching. He felt a bit uncomfortable. Su Qianxi did not realize what kind of impact her inadvertent movement had on the man in front of her. Very obediently, she got up and asked, "Then are we going to see the stars?" "Fine. I'll let you see all you want." He strode forward, carried her in his arms, and walked into the room in the sea that they had booked. As soon as they entered the room, he put her on the water bed in the center. Su Qianxi's body was swayed, and she actually felt a bit happy. She swayed again and again, having a lot of fun. He washed his hands and patted his face, trying to calm himself down. Looking back, he saw Su Qianxi swaying happily. Her loose skirt had already fallen to her waist. Her two white legs were crossed, and her red high heels made her look even more charming. Damn it! He reached out and tugged at his tie. Unable to take it anymore, he pushed his way between her legs, held her head in his big hand, and kissed her fiercely. Being kissed so suddenly, Su Qianxi's eyes were blurred and slightly confused. However, as if she was unaware, she stuck out her tongue and hooked it on his lips. Holding his head with both hands, she climbed her legs around his waist and rubbed against him intentionally or unintentionally. The little flame that was already beneficial to the prairie was burning even more fiercely. Li Siqing hurriedly took off his jacket, pulled open her shoulder strap, and took off the invisible bra in front of her. Chapter 199. This sound was like the sound of a bugle horn signaling the start of a battle. Li Siqing's arms tightened, and he tossed and turned. After a while, she gasped and tightened her arms around him. "No. Who am I?" Li Siqing's low voice sounded in front of her. Su Qianxi's eyes were a bit blurred, looking at him with confusion. Seeing that she did not respond, he hugged her even tighter, forced her head up to face him, and asked, "Who am I?" Su Qianxi looked at him blankly, thought for a moment and sweetly called, "Husband." "Who is husband?" "It's you." "Who am I?" "Li Siqing, ah." Her chest was being sucked again, and her arms tightened around him as she screamed. "Good girl, relax. Don't kiss there. It's so itchy. What about here?" No. What about here?" What about here?" Before she knew it, her dress had been half taken off, and her upper body was completely exposed. Su Qianxi's eyes were blurred. But damn it! Li Siqing suddenly realized that this woman seemed to be losing blood. Su Qianxi did not notice it. Feeling that the man on top of her had stopped, she moaned in dissatisfaction. Li Siqing pulled away and wanted to stand up, but found that his waist was held. Hey, Fox. He pulled her legs away. You did it on purpose, didn't you? Su Qianxi heard that and chuckled, seeming to be responding to his words. Li Xiqing's eyes dimmed, but he did not want to stay any longer, in case he could not control himself, and ran the red light. That would not be good. Taking a deep breath, Li Xiqing moved her leg away. When he was about to stand up, she reached over and grabbed his collar. Stepping back a little, Su Qianxi looked at the towering majestic view in front of her and blinked. He reached out and gently squeezed it. Well, it was hard. Su Qianxi blinked, and was about to fall asleep again. However, he held her hand and gritted his teeth. You are too naughty. Su Qianxi's eyes widened, watching him take off his clothes. She asked blankly, What are you doing? Take off your clothes. Why are you taking off your clothes? Su Qianxi was shocked by the heat, and quickly let go. She exclaimed and stepped back. Don't run. Li Xiqing's voice was a bit hoarse. You played with fire, so eat it. Ugh. No, don't eat it. Li Xiqing grabbed her, his voice full of temptation. Looking at her moist lips, his eyes became more enchanting, and he coaxed. Be good, open your mouth. Su Qianxi's head was pressed, and she struggled. Wan Lily, ugh, so dirty. Li Xiqing. Sorry for the reader's ticket if I don't dirty it. Chapter 200. When Su Qianxi woke up, it was already dawn. However, the soreness on her cheeks was very clear. Rubbing her face, she felt that her neck was also sore. Turning her head, she found that Li Xiqing was nowhere to be seen. She had also changed from the luxurious red evening dress into a set of pajamas. Needless to say, Li Xiqing must have changed it for her. But why was her face so sore? She got out of bed and walked to the door of the bathroom, which opened at the same time. Li Xiqing was still dripping water. Seeing that the person in front of him was obviously awake, his eyes darkened. Su Qianxi looked at him and blinked. Morning. It's not early. It's 10 o'clock. Ah, so late. Yeah. Let's get ready for breakfast. Okay. Her soft and obedient words reminded him of how obedient she was last night. His throat tightened, and the anger that he had finally calmed down was ignited again. Su Qianxi did not feel anything, rubbing her face as she walked in. After washing up, it was already half an hour later. However, Su Qianxi's face was still sore. At breakfast, Grandpa shook his head and said, What's wrong with your face? You keep rubbing it. Su Qianxi also looked confused. I don't know. It's so sore early in the morning. Li Xiqing calmly cut the grilled sausage in front of him, put one on her plate, and said calmly, Eat the sausage. Okay. Grandpa saw this scene and suddenly thought of something, coughing violently. Li Xiqing looked up and handed her a tissue. Don't think so much when you are old. It's not good for your health. Su Qianxi was a bit confused, looking at Captain Li and the calm man next to her. Obviously, she did not know what had happened. Old Master Li took the tissue and wiped the corner of his mouth. His face turned red and he sighed. Young people really know how to have fun. Su Qianxi looked confused. What's wrong? What happened? Li Xiqing's cold eyes flashed a smile and he said, It's okay, eat the sausage. Oh, after breakfast, the three of them set off for the airport. Today was October 7th, the last day of the National Day holiday. By the time he got off the plane, it was already past 8 o'clock in the evening in Connecticut. After parting with Grandpa, he took Su Qianxi back to the villa. Nanny Rong knew they were coming home, so she prepared dinner for them. She didn't leave work until they finished eating. From the next day on, both Su Qianxi and Li Xiqing were busy at work. Li Xiqing was naturally busy with work, and Su Qianxi, Wow Qianxi, your dress looks so good. Is it a limited edition? Sigh, I've never worn it before, and I don't recognize what brand it is. Of course, Qianxi has always been low-key. She even bought dresses without any logos. If Mr. Li had not come to school to protect her, we would not have known that she was Mrs. Li. Yes, too low-key. But sometimes, some things should be said to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings. What do you think, Qianxi? Su Qianxi looked coldly at the girls who used to ignore her, but now one by one surrounded her. Was he trying to flatter him? Chapter 201. Hearing their words, Su Qianxi glanced at the dress she was wearing and said, "My husband bought this for me. I don't know what brand it is." When she got home yesterday, she found her closet was full of new clothes. The quality and workmanship were all excellent. However, she could not recognize the brand, because it was said that it was all the latest products of an Italian designer. It was going to be released next year, and Li Xiqing had bought them all. Hearing that, all the girls looked envious. "Your husband is so good to you. I did not expect that Mr. Li, who looks so cold, would be so nice to you. Before he got married, many people said he might be gay. Now the rumor is gone. Yes, and he is hosting a cocktail party for you. It must have cost a lot of manpower and resources, right?" Su Qianxi sneered inwardly, finally getting to the point. Although this was only a meet-and-greet reception for her, the scale was far larger than many company gatherings. With such an occasion, who would not fight for a chance to show up? Seeing Su Qianxi did not speak, some girls could not help but say, "Su Qianxi, I heard that you will invite a lot of handsome guys and pretty girls to the cocktail party. I want to go as well. Is that okay?" "Me too. I heard that the people going there are all very good. I have never seen the world, so I want to go. After all, we are classmates. You won't say no to me, right?" "Me too. Me too, me too." In the classroom, all the girls were gathered together, and Su Qianxi was in the center. Su Qianxi did not speak until the bell rang. "Let's go. The professor is here." The girls were a bit embarrassed. Such an obvious rejection made many of them look bad. Sure enough, the professor soon walked in. The group of girls dispersed in an uproar. After returning to their seats, they were all indignant and began to murmur again. "What's the big deal? Without Mr. Li, who is she? How dare she be so arrogant?" Su Qianxi heard that and sneered inwardly. These people had put in a lot of effort in the matter of keeping her as a mistress. Now that she had reached the top in a single bound, she wanted to climb up to them. However, he pretended not to hear it and focused on the lesson. Finally, the class was over. Su Qianxi's face was cold all the way. Many people gathered around her, but they felt that they were asking for trouble and dispersed. Walking out of the school gate, she did not ask Yang to pick her up today. Instead, she walked slowly along the path out of the campus. She saw a taxi coming, and it was now empty. Not bad. Su Qianxi smiled, waiting for the people in the car to get out. But unexpectedly, a middle-aged lady got out of the back seat of the car and grabbed her head. The attack came so suddenly that Su Qianxi could not react at all. He dodged backwards, but his hair had already been grabbed, and he felt a burning pain. Chapter 202. Many students who had just finished class looked over, especially when they saw that the victim was Su Qianxi. Many people were shocked. "Isn't that Su Qianxi? Her husband is Li Xiqing. How could she seduce someone else's husband?" Su Qianxi's hair was grabbed and she grimaced in pain. However, she did not learn judo for nothing. He stretched out his hand and gripped the lady's armpit, twisting it hard. "Ouch!" The rich woman screamed and involuntarily loosened her hand. Su Qianxi took the opportunity to pull her hair back, and then kicked the rich woman in the stomach. The female students who were thinking about whether or not to help her all exclaimed when they saw this. No one had expected that Su Qianxi could beat someone so easily. The noblewoman was kicked to the ground. Her eyes widened in disbelief, and then she burst into tears. "Bastard, you stinking whore. You seduced someone else's husband and beat him up? I'll kill you." Su Qianxi saw the rich woman rushing over and sneered. She dodged to the side and reached out to grab the rich woman's fat hand. Pulling hard, she turned over and pressed the rich woman to the ground. Great! Cheers came from all around, and the upper-class woman felt even more ashamed. At this time, just behind the taxi, 2 luxury cars drove over, and several women rushed to Su Qianxi as soon as they got out. Su Qianxi vaguely felt something was wrong. She let go of the rich woman and turned to run. The rich woman yelled, "Catch the bitch!" Su Qianxi's heart skipped a beat. She was surrounded by several men. "What do you want?" "I don't know you." Those women were obviously good friends of the rich woman. They looked fierce and said, "It doesn't matter if you don't know us. I know you. You can do anything at such a young age. Why did you have to be the lover of a man who could be your father? How shameless. Su Qianxi's face became even darker and she yelled, "What nonsense are you talking about? Do you know who I am?" "Yes, the bitch who destroys people's families. Hit her." As they spoke, 3 or 4 women rushed over. Su Qianxi wanted to avoid them, but she was already surrounded. Having no choice, she looked at the man and woman not far away and shouted, "Help me call security. I am Su Qianxi." However, as soon as she said that, she was pushed hard. A woman directly straddled Su Qianxi and slapped her. "Ah!" Su Qianxi screamed and dodged, but she was kicked by another woman. There was no way for her to dodge. Of the 3 women, one grabbed her hand, one grabbed her foot, and one grabbed her hair. The lady got up, cried, and slapped Su Qianxi hard. "Damn it, hit me. I'll show you what I'm made of." The female students next to her saw this scene and felt a little scared. They wanted to help Su Qianxi, but they did not dare to. Some students went to the school to call security, while others began to call for help. Su Qianxi was slapped hard in the face. Her face tilted, and the phone in her pocket suddenly rang. When the rich lady heard this, she reached out and snatched her phone. She saw the caller ID, "Hubby." "Humph, so shameless," she said and picked up the phone. "Where are you?" The low voice was like a wine that had been sealed for thousands of years. Chapter 203. Li Xiqing leaned against the back seat of the car and said something on the phone. Suddenly, a roar came from the other side of the phone. With a cold look in his eyes, the originally lazy aura around him dissipated. Bang! The loud sound made Li Xiqing tense up. He growled, "Drive faster." The sudden change of his boss startled Yang, but he did not dare to slow down. He stepped on the gas and rushed forward. Su Qianxi was slapped again, and her face tilted to the side. "You are indeed very pretty. My old guy is head over heels for you. Not bad, right? Huh? How dare you seduce men?" The rich woman kicked Su Qianxi a few times. Su Qianxi gritted her teeth and did not say a word. Looking up at the fat face of the rich woman with heavy makeup, Su Qianxi's eyes were indescribably cold. And the one next to her, who was pulling her hair, grabbing her hands and grabbing her feet, she would remember everyone's face. "What are you looking at? You shameless B*th. I don't know you, let alone your husband." Su Qianxi's voice was a bit hoarse but terrifyingly calm. "You will pay the price." Her voice was cold and indescribably creepy. The rich woman was a bit scared, but she still spat and threw out a stack of photos. In the photo, a middle-aged man was holding a beautiful woman's hand and touching her breasts, smiling obscenely. And the woman in the photo turned out to be herself. "It's not me." "Not you? Open your eyes and look clearly. Is it you? Is it you?" The rich woman grabbed Su Qianxi's hair and asked fiercely, "What's going on? What's going on? Where did you come from?" The school's security guard finally came out and shouted. The rich woman ignored him and took out a stack of cash from her wallet, throwing it at the guard's face. "Get away from me. I'm doing something." The security guard was dumbfounded and quickly became angry. "What do you mean by this? Not enough?" Another woman also took out a big stack and threw it at the security guard. "Let me tell you, this is Fu Zetian's wife. She can kill you with a flick of her finger." The security guard's expression changed. Fu Zetian? A real estate tycoon who could shake the earth with his every move? He had been the richest man in Kingstown for more than a decade. In recent years, he had been pushed down by a new rich man. How could the wife of such a person beat up a student of his school? Should he intervene or not? The security guard hesitated. The rich woman snorted, turned around, and slapped Su Qianxi again. "Scream, scream. You don't even scream when I hit you. Aren't you very good in bed? Didn't you seduce my husband? Why don't you scream a few times? Let me learn a few moves." "Ah." The rich woman's voice became fiercer and fiercer. She slapped her fat hand on Gu Nianji's hand insultingly and said filthy words. Su Qianxi bit her lower lip with blood on the corner. Looking at the rich woman, she sneered. "Facing a fat pig like you, no wonder your husband doesn't want you." The rich woman's expression changed dramatically as she roared, "Bitch!" She raised her hand and slapped at Su Qianxi's red and swollen face. However, just when it was less than half a fist away from her face, her elbow was ruthlessly pinched. The sharp pain that felt as though it was about to break made her scream out loud. Chapter 204. Ouch! With a scream, the rich woman was thrown into a daze. She didn't feel well at all. Taking a closer look, it turned out to be a handsome guy who came out of nowhere. His aura was cold, and it was easy to tell that he was not an ordinary guy. Looking at his cold face, it was obvious that he was the one who hit her. The rich woman was not an infatuated woman. She cursed loudly. Where did this pretty boy come from? You want to protect this shameless mistress, right? Hearing that, Li Xiqing's face darkened. Especially after seeing the mess Su Qianxi was in, he could not suppress the anger in his heart. Stepping forward, Li Xiqing held her face in his hands. His eyes were cold and full of heartache. You are? One of the three rich women felt that Li Xiqing looked familiar, but she did not know where she had seen him before. Li Xiqing's sharp eyes glanced at the women who were holding Su Qianxi. The women immediately felt a chill down their spines and quickly let go of her. Without anyone holding her, Su Qianxi's body swayed. Li Xiqing immediately hugged her and held her in his arms. Feeling the familiar smell and taste, Su Qianxi's eyes suddenly became hot. Grievance flooded like a tide. Lying on his chest, she burst into tears. Honey, it hurts. Li Xiqing felt that his heart was being squeezed, and he was in a panic. It was the first time that she had called him husband and complained that it hurt. How could it not hurt? She was beaten like this. The anger, pity, regret, and self-blame in his heart all came at once. Holding her in his arms, he whispered, I'm here. I'm here. I don't even want my woman to cry. You guys. Very good. Li Xiqing suppressed the urge to beat the women up and whispered, Yang, call the police. Okay. Yang quickly dialed 110 and gave the address. The rich women were not afraid at all. The leading woman sneered. It was this little bitch who seduced my husband first. I was just beating up the mistress. I advise you to stay out of this. The police will give me some face. You know my man is Fu Zetian. Li Xiqing chuckled coldly and said, Then let's see if they are giving face to Fu Zetian or me. Li Xiqing. The college girl's husband is Li Xiqing. The noblewoman's friend was wavering. Everyone in Kingstown knew what kind of person Li Xiqing was. Even people like them, who usually didn't pay attention to the news, had heard about it. No matter how she looked at it, Li Xiqing did not look like someone who would fool around. However, the rich woman got up and saw her friend's reaction. She was furious. Pfft! How can you believe her nonsense? My friend has also been seduced. What a vixen. She's so capable. She's seduced two of the richest men in Kingstown. Who knows how powerful she is? Li Xiqing's eyes were even darker. Like a snowstorm, an overwhelming coldness hit her face. The noblewoman only felt a wave of cold air blowing on her face, and immediately shut her mouth in fright. However, Li Xiqing lowered his head and said gently to Su Qianxi, Honey, do you want revenge? Su Qianxi looked up. Her hair was a mess, and her white and tender cheeks were bruised and swollen. Li Xiqing's heart skipped a beat when he saw her. Without waiting for Su Qianxi to answer, Li Xiqing had already carried her to the rich woman. Chapter 205. Li Xiqing would not answer her. Looking down at Su Qianxi, he said, Just keep her alive. I'll take care of the rest. The rich woman's heart skipped a beat, and she was shocked. She knew that Li Xiqing was absolutely capable of that. The younger generation was selling Li Xiqing's name, and the older ones were selling the Li family's face. This was especially true for the Public Security Bureau. Their existence depended on the old General Li Sun's reputation. No matter what kind of power it was enough for him to say that. Su Qianxi sniffed and looked at the obviously frightened face of the rich woman. She jumped up and kicked at the rich woman's lower body. The rich woman screamed like a pig being slaughtered, which shocked her friends around her. When they were about to help, Yang had already stopped them. The school security guard also came forward. Help! Help! The rich woman screamed. Her expression changed drastically. Help! Murder! She screamed as she scrambled around in a panic. Su Qianxi saw that the rich woman was scared out of her wits, and felt a bit good. Her face was burning with pain. How could she not take revenge? However, she was not in a hurry. Instead, she turned her head and looked at Li Xiqing. Li Xiqing was a bit surprised. Not fighting anymore? Dirty hands. She had a better way to deal with this woman. Just then the police siren rang. After seeing Li Xiqing, they did not ask what happened and directly arrested the rich women. At the police station, after their statements were recorded, the rich women were each detained for 20 days. At 7 p.m., holding a stack of documents in her hand, Cheng Yu walked into the living room of the villa. Boss, I found it. Inadvertently glancing at Su Qianxi sitting on the sofa, her face was indescribably unharmonious, which made Cheng Yu very distressed. Su Qianxi did not care. She took the documents, flipped through them and sneered. It's really them. You already knew? Cheng Yu was a bit surprised. As expected. In addition to them, she could not think of anyone else who hated her so much that they actually photoshopped those photos to frame her. Cheng Yu shook her head. I didn't expect them to be so stupid. Was the last lesson not enough? If people want to humiliate themselves, nothing can stop them. She put down the file and looked up. What about those women? According to what you said, they have already been bailed out by their people without pressuring them. Cheng Yu said, but still couldn't help but want to ask. Why? Those women bullied you so much. Why did you let them out? As he spoke, he looked at Li Xiqing. Li Xiqing leaned against the sofa, looking confident. Instead of answering, he asked, how's the thing I asked you to do? Well, it's all settled, but... Cheng Yu hesitated and said, will it be too cruel? She blinked and asked, what did you do? Acquisition. When Cheng Yu heard this word, she silently added a few words in her heart. Defeat them first, then buy them. It was a classic case of giving candy after a slap. The other party clearly knew what was going on, but he couldn't even fart. With such a huge turmoil, the Li Consortium would definitely be in the economic headlines tomorrow. Sob sob. The boss is really willing to spend money for his wife. Ah, Su Qianxi was startled. Then can you also buy Fu Zetian's company? It was fine if it was the other women's companies, since they were just clinging to the rich woman. However, Fu Zetian's foundation in Kingstown for more than a decade could not be destroyed so easily. Not now but soon. Li Xiqing looked at Su Qianxi and slowly said, it's all your credit. It's your idea. Su Qianxi looked confused. She just thought of a way to make the rich woman suffer. How did it become his idea to buy the Fu family's company? Chapter 206. The last thing a successful businessman lacked was socializing. Fu Zetian was drunk. When he was draining the toilet, he vaguely saw a black shadow flash by. He didn't pay much attention to it. He zipped up his pants and turned to leave. But all of a sudden, his head was covered by a black object. He choked on the tip of his nose and lost consciousness. When he woke up again, Fu Zetian opened his eyes and saw a delicate and beautiful face under him. Suddenly, a black shadow fell in front of him. A woman was straddling his chest. Mr. Fu, you're awake. Ha ha ha. Fu Zetian had always liked to indulge in sensual pleasures, but the tigress at home didn't let him have his way. No man would be able to control himself in such a situation. Fu Zetian stared blankly. He didn't care what was going on. He laughed and hugged the beauty down. He flipped her over and enjoyed her wantonly. But there was a loud banging on the door. Fu Zetian paused for a moment, but then he exerted more force. The woman below screamed even louder. Her voice went through the door and reached the ears of the people outside. This was an ordinary motel. The soundproofing wasn't very good. The rich woman heard the loud banging and became anxious. She slammed the door with her body and the door opened. But the person inside didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. The banging sound was endless, followed by the crazy moans. When the rich woman saw that it was really Fu Zetian, she burst into tears. You heartless man. You're really fooling around outside. Two at once. Why don't you *CK yourself? Fu Zetian heard his wife's voice and was shocked. His body trembled. The rich woman was even angrier. She walked up and grabbed the hair of another woman, who was silently guarding the side. She roared, B***tch, how dare you seduce my husband? I'll kill you. The woman had been in this business for so many years. She wasn't a pushover. After her hair was grabbed, she bumped into the rich woman's face. Bang! The rich woman was knocked unconscious. She fell to the ground. The woman sneered disdainfully. You can't keep your man, yet you blame him for coming out to whore? The woman on the bed also climbed down to pick up the clothes before saying, TSK, I thought you were tough, but you were scared by your own wife for less than 3 minutes. Boring. Fu Zetian felt that his dignity as a man had been challenged. When he wanted to grab the woman, she had already escaped. Fuming, Fu Zetian stepped forward and kicked the rich woman hard. What are you doing here? The rich woman cried out in pain from the kick and cried, You heartless bastard. I've been waiting for you at home for so long. I didn't expect you to be playing with women here. What's wrong with playing with women? I've had enough of facing a fat pig like you every day. Fu Zetian was even more furious when he thought of his embarrassment just now. Damn it, you only know how to hold me back. I'm so unlucky to marry you. The rich woman burst into tears. Son of a B***tch, son of a B***tch. The sound of crying and screaming came from the computer screen. Su Qianxi heard the cry and felt very sympathetic. Wan Lily. Give her what she's most afraid of. Su Qianxi. No problem. No problem. Chapter 207. The rich woman burst into tears. Son of a B***tch. Son of a B***tch. The sound of crying came from the computer screen. Su Qianxi heard the cry and felt very sympathetic. No wonder the woman was so hysterical after meeting such a man. The camera was from a first-person perspective. Fu Zetian's foot could be seen from the bottom of the rich woman's handbag. From that angle, Fu Zetian's foot could be seen. Suddenly, there was a scream on the computer screen, and the camera suddenly changed to black. The rich woman's scream and the sound of the man hitting someone were very eye-catching. The next day, this video appeared on Weibo. All the social media accounts spread it as fast as lightning. Fu Zetian would never have thought that his wife would post his behavior on Weibo. On the same day, Fu Zetian had a huge and irreparable hole. On the same day, Fu Zetian's cooperation was cancelled by the major shareholders, resulting in a loss of nearly 10 billion yuan. The next day, Fu Zetian's door was surrounded by reporters. All the headlines began to report the current situation of Fu Zetian. Netizens all speculated that Fu Zetian was at the end of his rope. Everything soon reached Tang Mingqing's ears. Tang Mingqing knew what was going on. However, the more she knew, the more uneasy she felt. The bell rang. Tang Mingqing hurriedly put away her bag and rushed to the classroom. Li Weiya happened to walk out of the classroom next door and stopped her. Mingqing, wait a second. This is for you. Tang Mingqing stopped and turned around. Li Weiya was holding a gift box in her hand. Opening it, there was a beautiful watch inside. Tang Mingqing was surprised. For me? Yes. Li Weiya raised her hand. I have one too. My second cousin gave it to me. It's a pair. She asked me to give it to my best friend, so that we can be good friends for the rest of our lives. Hearing that it was a gift from Su Qianxi, Tang Mingqing's smile froze. She said, Never mind. I don't want it. Her things. But this is a symbol of good friends. I don't want to give it to anyone else. Please take it. Seeing Li Weiya's pleading expression, Tang Mingqing nodded helplessly. Li Weiya smiled happily and put the watch on Tang Mingqing's wrist. Never take it off. Let's go eat together tonight. Okay. Finally getting rid of Li Weiya, Tang Mingqing hurried home. Tang Mingqing had been staying at home ever since she was asked to resign by the Li family. As soon as Tang Mingqing got home, she pushed Su Qianxi into her room and asked mysteriously, Sister, have you seen the news? Yes. I did not expect Li Xiqing to be so cruel this time. He just slapped Su Qianxi a few times and almost bankrupted the Fu family. Hearing that, Tang Mingqing panicked. What should we do, sister? If Li Xiqing finds out that we sent the photos to that old woman, we will die even more miserably. What's the rush? We won't be able to find anything. Tang Minjing was confident and sneered. I can abort her child without anyone suspecting me. As long as you don't expose it, who will know? But, no buts. Be smart. Su Qianxi that bitch. So what if the old man likes her? Qin Shuhua likes me. When the old man dies, we'll have plenty of good days ahead of us. Chapter 208. Su Qianxi put on her headphones and listened to what was going on over there. When she noticed that Li Weiya had given the watch away, she curled her lips and typed quickly on the keyboard. It was Louis Han in the chat box. Su Qianxi, let me know if there is any news. Louis Han, give me 10 minutes. 10 minutes wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. When Louis Han called, she heard Tang Minjing's confident words. Her hand slightly trembled. The phone fell to the ground with a thud. I can abort one of her babies without anyone suspecting me. Subconsciously putting her hand on her flat belly, she felt her heart tremble. Tang Minjing had aborted her baby? What happened to Coach Jean last time was really her doing. To think that she had thought that humans were born with a good nature. Louis Han had wanted to leave her a way out, but now, it was not necessary. No one answered, so Louis Han popped up in the chat window and sent a question mark. Su Qianxi, did you find it? Louis Han, let's talk on the phone. The phone rang again, and Louis Han's first sentence was, yes. Su Qianxi's heart sank and she nodded. I traced Tang Minjing's IP address and found that she has 3 numbers. One is for work, one is for personal use, and one is often turned off, but it just turned back on. I traced it and found the IP address and number of the other party. Tang Minjing's shooter. Where is that person? I am not sure yet, but what happened to Coach Jean must have something to do with her. I guess she will do something big next. Didn't you use the listening device I gave you? Did you hear anything? Well, keep an eye on it. I don't think it is that simple. On the other side of the phone, Tang Minjing was still talking. Su Qianxi was multitasking. Suddenly, Tang Minjing's tone changed, attracting all of Su Qianxi's attention. She said, so what? If I can't get her this time, I will wait for the next time. Didn't the old man give her a press conference? Then I will do it. At that time, I will give them a big gift. Haha, I have not used my trump card yet. What does that idiot Su Qianxi have to compete with me? What gift? Tang Minjing asked curiously. You will know when the time comes. Tang Minjing did not intend to answer. Suddenly the phone rang. Tang Minjing said, I have to take a call. You go out first. Tang Minjing went out, and there was no more sound from the bug. Su Qianxi panicked and yelled into the phone. Quick, track Tang Minjing's call. Louis Han replied casually, I'm following. I'll give you the recording. A few minutes later, Louis Han's voice came. She asked anxiously, how is it? Louis Han hesitated, and his voice became hesitant. I heard it, but you have to calm down first. This news may not be good. What did they say? They're meeting tonight. And then, what is the bad news? Louis Han was silent for a moment and stammered. Well, is Mr. Li here? The second time Mr. Li. Su Qianxi was keenly aware of the change in the way Louis Han addressed her. Usually he called her husband. What happened? Tell me. Chapter 209. Su Qianxi felt a little uneasy, and she was ready to bear all the bad news. However, she could not imagine what kind of news Tang Minjing could have that made Louis Han so cautious. Subconsciously holding her breath, she waited for Louis Han's words. In the end, Louis Han still couldn't bear to say, that woman is pregnant. Boom. Su Qianxi felt her ears ringing, as if something in her brain had suddenly collapsed. Louis Han was silent, and so was Su Qianxi. After a long time, Su Qianxi suddenly came back to herself and said firmly, impossible. Louis Han was silent for a moment, and sent the recording over. Su Qianxi trembled and touched the touch panel of the laptop, wanting to open it, but her heart was trembling. Impossible, impossible. Clearly, Tang Minjing was not pregnant in her previous lifetime, right? Clearly, Tang Minjing did not announce the news of her pregnancy at all. Did she? And with Tang Minjing's personality, she should have announced it, shouldn't she? Yes, it was absolutely impossible for her to be pregnant. Su Qianxi forced a smile and said, "It can't be Li Xiqing's, right?" Lu Yihan could not bear it and sighed. Silence was better than words. Su Qianxi's heart tightened. She downloaded the recording and heard Tang Minjing's voice. 7 o'clock in the evening, the same place. "Oh, there's a new task again. What, this time it's Li Xiqing's woman again? Humph, why do you care so much? You'd better watch your mouth, or I can get all the money back. Why do you care so much? What do you want to do this time? How much? Let's talk face to face. And on the video I asked you to make, you need to add something." "Add what?" "I want to post the news of my pregnancy." "Ah, you're really pregnant?" "Yes, Li Xiqing's." The voice was sweet, happy and gentle. Hearing this, Su Qianxi could not bear it anymore, and her hands were a bit weak. In her mind, the ambiguous voice that had been lingering in her ears for the past 2 months sounded. Calculating the time, it should be more than 2 months now, which was the time to protect the baby. Thinking of the passion and eagerness he had shown her in the past few days. Was it because Tang Minjing was pregnant that he used her as a substitute? Su Qianxi's brain was terribly empty, and her heart hurt terribly. She shouldn't think too much. She didn't want to think too much, but her thoughts couldn't help but be excited. In the end, it was her turn to cry. Li Xiqing came back from work and squeezed into the bedroom. Because their relationship had improved in the past few days, he dragged her directly to the master bedroom to rest. This time, she was still sitting in the master bedroom. Entering the door, Su Qianxi was sitting in front of the computer with her back to the door. She seemed to be in a daze. He hugged her from behind, buried his face in her neck, and whispered, "I'm back." But when he took a closer look, he saw that there were obvious new tear stains on her pink and tender face that had almost recovered. What happened? Li Xiqing glanced at the screen on the computer, but only had time to see it was Lu Yihan's window, and Su Qianxi closed it. Li Xiqing's eyes darkened, pretending not to see it was Lu Yihan, and said as if nothing had happened, "Today, I will help you move all your things here." Her things were still in the second bedroom. They were husband and wife, so they should live in the same room, right? Chapter 210. Su Qianxi resisted his hug. Taking his hand away, she stood up. It was still the same face, the same look. However, when she thought that he was facing another woman the same way, she couldn't help but feel disgusted. "Let's wait for a few days. Before she finished, Li Xiqing understood what she meant. He was a little dissatisfied, but seeing her look, he reached out to wipe away her tears and nodded considerately. "Mr. Li." Su Qianxi looked up, but seeing his cold and deep eyes, she swallowed the question that was on the tip of her tongue. Should she ask? Should she? Could she? Seeing that she wanted to say something, Li Xiqing was curious and looked at her in confusion. She bit her lower lip and asked in a low voice, "How do you feel about Tang Minjing?" Li Xiqing arched an eyebrow. "The neighbor's sister. That's it." Su Qianxi looked at him with a complicated look. Her eyes were wet, and she couldn't tell what she was feeling. "Yes." "Oh, liar, liar. If he really thought of her as a sister, would he sleep with her? If he really thought of her as a sister, would he have children with her?" That night in both her previous and current life was a thorn in her heart that she could not get rid of. She could not get rid of it, but the pain was excruciating. Su Qianxi did not feel very good, and her eyes were slightly red. "What's wrong?" Li Xiqing looked distressed. He raised his hand, wanting to hold her in his arms. Shaking her head again and again, she stepped away from him. "Let's go eat." She turned around and walked out of the room. Li Xiqing paused and looked at the bare desktop of her computer, his eyes cold and deep. On the bed, Su Qianxi's cell phone rang, and the caller was Yihan. Seeing the name, Li Xiqing's heart sank even more. Combined with Su Qianxi's attitude, it was clear what she meant. She was still pestering Lu Yihan. When she was in the Maldives, she still pretended to be with him. Now that she was back in China, she wanted to get rid of him, right? So she was tired of looking at him now, right? Anger surged in his heart, but he quickly warned himself to calm down. Trust her, trust her. However, after hesitating, he still picked up the phone without saying anything. Qianqian, I got it. That woman and the shooter are going to meet at an abandoned factory in the east of the city at 7 p.m. It's almost 6 p.m. now. Ask Mr. Li to send someone there. What do you mean? His voice was low and deep, as if it was laced with ice. Hearing Li Xiqing's voice, Lu Yihan was overjoyed and briefly explained what had happened. However, after thinking about it, he still did not tell Li Xiqing that she already knew about Tang Minjing. Even so, Li Xiqing's aura became even colder. So if we send someone over now, we might be able to find out what they are up to. It would be best if we can take a picture of it as evidence. Mr. Xiqing, Li Xiqing, Su Qianxi said. Lu Yihan's enthusiasm was extinguished, and he hung up the phone in embarrassment. Lu Qianxi, Su Qianxi asked. Su. Chong he say. Su Xian asked. Li, she asked. Said. Chapter 211. The usual place. The usual place she and Lu Yihan went to was the coffee shop. However, what was so important that he needed to talk to her face to face? Su Qianxi frowned, stood up, and went back to her room to get her phone. Li Xiqing stood in front of her, his eyes cold. Where are you going? To ask him what's the matter. Let's eat first. But what if it's an emergency? Su Qianxi was about to walk away. Li Xiqing pursed his lips, reached out, and grabbed her hand. His cold eyes seemed to be raging, but when she looked closer he was calm. He said, he asked me to send someone to the warehouse on the east side of the city. Hearing that, Su Qianxi's eyes flashed with sharpness. Have you found Tang Minjing's meeting place? Li Xiqing narrowed his eyes and nodded. Su Qianxi was silent for a moment. Seeing his obviously colder face, she said, Li Xiqing. Li Xiqing. Li Xiqing looked at her, and his lips gradually curled up. Do you need me to remind you who you are, Mrs. Li? Su Qianxi's dark eyes met his even colder eyes, feeling a bit nervous. She was still afraid of him. The fear deep in her bones would not disappear just because he was nice to her. Su Qianxi suddenly felt a bit weak. She plucked up her courage and looked straight at him. I think I have found out who killed my child. My child. Not our child. Li Xiqing's hand slightly tightened, and his eyes were sharp. Your child is not mine? Feeling the pain, she frowned and wanted to break free, but he held her firmly. Tell me, isn't it? Seeing her frown, Li Xiqing suddenly had a crazy idea. The miscarried child was very likely not his. Su Qianxi felt humiliated by his question. He was suspecting her? A surge of anger surged in her heart, and her breathing became rapid. Staring at his cold face, she sneered. I am not as despicable as you, who would do anything. Let go. I'm cheap. He gritted his teeth and held her even tighter. How dare you call me that? Su Qianxi was horrified and blurted it out in a fit of anger. But now, Su Qianxi was so shocked that she trembled slightly, and her eyes were red. She shouted, Isn't it? You are married. Why did you sleep with another woman? Aren't you a bitch? Her voice was hysterical, and she was choking with sobs. Li Xiqing was dazed by the roar, and the coldness on him eased a bit. She thought he felt guilty and almost suffocated. Biting her lower lip, she stared at him with red eyes. Nanny Rong came in after putting away the clothes. Seeing the two of them fighting, she was shocked. What's going on? He waved his hand, indicating that it was fine. Looking at the angry woman in front of him, he calmed down and asked, What makes you think that I slept with another woman? She looked up at him, her eyes slightly red. If not, then where did that child come from? With Tang Minjing's obsession with Li Xiqing, it was impossible for her to have sex outside. If he did not sleep with her, then where did her child come from? Su Qianxi did not speak. Li Xiqing took a step closer, his eyes sharp and serious. If I tell you that you are my first and only woman, would you believe it? Would you believe it? Chapter 212. Hearing that, Su Qianxi was dazed. His eyes were dark, deep, and intense. They were so serious that she almost wanted to blurt out, "I believe you." However, she knew. Impossible. That's impossible. He was 26 years old this year, the age of youth. Was that the only time he had ever had sex with her? Did Tang Minjing like him so much? And he had never responded? Su Qianxi's eyes flickered, looking extremely complicated. However, seeing her eyes, Li Xiqing's heart suddenly sank. She did not need any answer. He had already seen it. She did not believe him. Seeing the cold atmosphere, Nanny Rong hurried over and said, "Second master, second mistress, let's eat. You will have the energy to fight after eating, right?" Fight? Are they having a quarrel? Su Qianxi looked away, took her hand back, and went upstairs. Li Xiqing looked at her back as she walked away. His eyes were burning, and he followed her. Knowing that he was behind her, Su Qianxi walked faster into the master bedroom, and immediately locked the door. Leaning against the door, tears of grievance flowed down her cheeks. Why didn't she ask? Why didn't she tell him? When Tang Minjing was pregnant, she could have just asked him face to face. However, she did not dare. What if he directly turned around to look for Tang Minjing? What if he directly told her that the one he liked and loved was Tang Minjing? What should she do? She was so scared that she did not have the courage to say it out loud. About 10 minutes later, she grabbed her phone and computer, stood by the door for a moment, and was about to go out. However, as soon as she opened the door, she felt a gust of cold air. Li Xiqing was standing at the door with a cold face. She was shocked and wanted to close the door, but he had already squeezed his way in. She stepped back, and he approached her. Forcing her into the corner, Li Xiqing looked down at the computer in front of her, and threw it on the bed. Then, he put his hands on the side of her body and looked down at her. Su Qianxi's eyes were slightly red and swollen. Obviously, she had just cried. Li Xiqing felt strange. She had put the blame on him. He had not cried yet. Why was she crying? Looking even colder, he lowered his voice and tried not to look angry. Why don't you believe me? Why didn't she believe him? Why didn't she believe him? Su Qianxi's heart suddenly tightened, and the feeling of soreness hit her like a tide, wave after wave. Why should I believe you? I am your husband. But I am not the only woman you have. She smiled with difficulty, but this smile had been corroded by sadness and grievance. Li Xiqing's eyes became cold, and he lowered his head to capture her lips. She turned her head to avoid his lips, and let him kiss her on the cheek. Tasting a mouthful of salty tears, Li Xiqing licked the tip of his tongue and tried more. From her face he slowly kissed her eyes, her eyebrows, and the tip of her nose. Finally, his big hands straightened her face and slowly landed on her lips. However, Su Qianxi pursed her lips tightly and refused to let go. More and more tears flowed down unscrupulous. "Let me tell you a secret," he said in a low voice. She looked at him from the corner of her eyes. Chapter 213. His heart skipped a beat. Su Qianxi opened her tearful eyes and looked at him. Li Xiqing wiped away her tears with his slightly calloused hand and said, "But why do you suspect me? Why do you suspect me?" There was a hint of bitterness in his voice. Indistinctly, his resentment soared to the heavens. He was not angry. He was just resentful. Resentful that she did not believe him and suspected him. Su Qianxi's tears fell even harder. She choked and said, "Then, why Tang Minjing?" Li Xiqing's heart sank and asked, "That woman again? What did she say to her? That was why his little wife was so suspicious of him?" Su Qianxi saw his unkind face, and the determination in her heart seemed to be shaken at that moment. It seemed that he did not have the kind of feelings for Tang Minjing that she had imagined. Otherwise, how could he have such an expression? Li Xiqing noticed her hesitation, leaned closer and whispered, "What did she say?" She. If Tang Minjing said it to her face, Su Qianxi would definitely not believe it. However, the news was eavesdropped on her own. Plus the phone call that night. She is pregnant. Li Xiqing heard that, arched an eyebrow, and suddenly sneered in a low voice. So soon? Didn't she say that she loved him so much that she could not extricate herself? After returning from the business trip, she even threatened to marry him. At that time, He could not stand it and asked her to leave. Now in less than 3 months she was pregnant. Su Qianxi gritted her teeth, feeling even more empty. She looked up and asked, "You admit it?" "Admit what?" Li Xiqing asked and suddenly realized something. "You think that the child is mine?" Seeing his calm look, Su Qianxi suddenly felt suffocated. Liar, liar. It was obviously his. Why did he pretend to be innocent? She said it herself. "The child is yours." Li Xiqing curled his lips and approached her, saying, 80% of the women in Kingstown want to have children with me." Her eyes widened, unable to believe that such shameless words came out of his mouth. Li Xiqing leaned closer and said hoarsely, "She tried to seduce me more than once, but unfortunately, I couldn't get hard with her." "Can't get hard for Tang Menjing? But to me, he's in heat everywhere." How could it be you?" Su Qianxi stuttered. Blushing, she lowered her head, a bit upset. "Aren't you?" He pressed her against the wall and whispered, "I only have this feeling for you. Su Qianxi, I want to have children with you." Su Qianxi was even more flustered. She wanted to push him away, but found that he did not move at all. When she looked up, her lips were firmly pressed against his. She didn't have the slightest bit of defense before he attacked her. All of her weapons were destroyed, and he was forcing her to lay down her arms and surrender. Li Xiqing put his right arm around her waist, picked her up, and pressed her down on the bed. "Wan Lily, hey Qianqian, you're so easy to coax." Su Qianxi thought, "He's so charming. I can't take it." Chapter 214. With their hot breaths intertwined, Li Xiqing buried his face in her neck and kissed her passionately, gradually moving down. The tingling sensation made Su Qianxi's whole body tense up. Even her pink toes curled up. "Did he leave?" Li Xiqing suddenly asked, looking up at her with some desire in his eyes. Su Qianxi was confused and blinked. Li Xiqing did not answer but moved his hand down. Su Qianxi immediately understood, shrank her neck, and nodded with a blush. Just yesterday. A trace of satisfaction flashed in his cold eyes. When he was about to move again, someone knocked on the door. Nanny Rong's voice came. "Sir, madam, let's talk nicely. Don't fight." Su Qianxi heard that and blushed even more, feeling ashamed. They were just quarreling a moment ago. And now, they ended up on the bed. Ugh, so embarrassing. Seeing her embarrassed look, Li Xiqing chuckled and sucked on her exposed neck, leaving a mark, and reluctantly said, "I'll go open the door." Su Qianxi put her hand on her neck. When he got up, she immediately hid under the blanket. Nanny Rong was worried. The couple had only been together for a few days, but they were already quarreling. As elders, they were worried sick. Although Su Qianxi knew that Li Xiqing would not do anything to a woman, she was still worried that Su Qianxi might say something mean and make him angry. And then, anxious. Nanny Rong couldn't help but knock a few more times. First, before she finished, the door was opened. Li Xiqing's cold face was suddenly radiant, his eyes blurred, and even his neat hairstyle was a bit messy. Li Xiqing's face was cold and expressionless. His eyes were blurred, and even his hair was a bit messy. "What's wrong?" Li Xiqing's voice was a bit low and depressed. Nanny Rong was experienced. She knew what was going on with one look. Blushing, she immediately looked away and said, "You haven't eaten yet. Don't be too late." Hearing Nanny Rong's words, Su Qianxi was even more embarrassed. Nanny Rong must think that she was being too casual. They were just fighting. Moreover, the source of the quarrel was him. She got up from the bed, tidied herself up, and was about to go out. Li Xiqing had just closed the door again. Turning around, he saw the woman trying to escape, pressing her against the wall. He couldn't hide the lust in his eyes as he whispered, "Where are we going?" "Hungry." He stared at her like an eagle looking at its prey. Licking his lips, he said, "I'm hungry too." As he spoke, his cold eyes were filled with hunger. Su Qianxi was so naked that she turned her head away in embarrassment. When he said he was hungry, did she really mean the same thing? Why did she feel so horrified? At that moment, Li Xiqing's phone rang. It was the detective sent by Chengyu. "Boss, the hunter has arrived at the destination and is waiting for orders." "Hunt?" Yes. After hanging up, he saw Su Qianxi clutching her belly and looking at him pitifully. Li Xiqing smiled and ruffled her hair. Let's eat first. When Nanny Rong saw the couple walking down hand in hand, her eyes widened and she blurted out, so fast? Li Xiqing's face suddenly became gloomy. Wan Lily, ha ha ha, Mr. Li, so fast. Chapter 215. It was 7 o'clock in the evening, and the abandoned factory in the east of the city was deserted. In a place where there weren't many people, a van that was neither old nor new slowly drove into a place that couldn't be any more ordinary. The hunter took out a camera in the dark and connected it to Chung Yu's remote device. Prey in the net. Roger that. The van gradually came to a stop, and a woman whose entire body was wrapped tightly got out of the van. Wearing a mask, a hat, glasses, and a long-sleeved chiffon shirt that was out of season, and a pair of sneakers, he slowly walked to a corner. About 3 minutes later, the heavy sound of a motorcycle came. The sound of a top-of-the-line motorcycle was very eye-catching. A man got off, took off the protective cover and whistled. Just like Tang Minjing, he did not notice that someone was ambushing him. Hey, what are you afraid of by wrapping yourself up like this every time? It's not like anyone will find out. Cut the crap. Where are the things? Pfft, you have no sense of humor. He threw an envelope into Tang Minjing's hand. It's not easy for me to Photoshop these things. You have to pay me more. You will die because of money sooner or later. Tang Minjing opened the envelope and saw the photos. She smiled with satisfaction. Where did you find this man? He's so ugly. You don't know him? He is the most popular guy on Weibo, and he likes to post these kinds of photos in bed. I just spent some money to buy some that have not been leaked yet, and then changed the faces of these women. Well, good technique. I can't tell that it's Photoshop at all. Of course. Where is the thing you want to add? Here. Remember to add it. Then, Li Xiqing will not be able to deny it. Okay. I will add it when I get back. Remember to pay me. I can't do without you. You have to know that I am risking my life to do this for you. Remember last time, Lao Jin was tortured by Li Xiqing. If this is exposed, I will die a worse death than him. Are you afraid? Then I will ask someone else to do it. Come on. We have been working together for so long. Just give me 1 or 2 million, and I will do it for you. Blackmail? 1 or 2 million. The hunter thought that Tang Minjing would turn around and leave, but she said, I will need you. Just do your job well. But are you sure you will be safe? Pff, don't worry. In terms of hacking skills, I can guarantee that no one in the whole of China is better than me except for that Z. That's good. Well done. Okay. The two quickly said goodbye. Tang Minjing opened the door of the van and sat in the back seat. The man put on his hood and prepared to leave. Relieved, the hunter put the camera away, pressed the pause button, and put the camera away carefully. However, just as he was putting down the camera, his elbow accidentally touched the box next to him. The broken box quickly fell down, and in an instant, a large number of things fell down with a crash. Tang Minjing was startled, and so was the man. He shouted, Who's there? Show yourself. The hunter, greatly frightened, rose and ran as soon as he saw them coming. Tang Minjing was so scared that her face turned pale. She shouted, Stop. Quick, chase after him. Chapter 216. The hunter had never been so embarrassed. He thought that the task was completed and he could leave. Unexpectedly, at the last moment, he was tricked by himself. Running at the fastest speed in his life, the hunter did not dare to look back. But the sound of the motorcycle was getting closer and closer. The east of the city was a remote industrial area. After running out, there were very few cars coming and going. Seeing the sound of the motorcycle getting louder and louder, the hunter panicked even more. In the process of running, the hunter turned around and threw his precious camera at the man on the motorcycle. Give it back to you. The man on the motorcycle was shocked. He did not expect this guy to be so ruthless. He tilted his head down, and the camera flew past his helmet. He hurriedly got out of the car and found the camera. However, he found that the place where the memory card should have been was empty. There was only a broken camera left. What the F***? Throwing the broken camera, the man on the motorcycle got in the car again and chased the hunter. Stepping on the gas, the distance between the hunter and him was shortened in an instant. What to do? What to do? The hunter felt that he was about to suffocate, and his legs were terribly sore. This feeling of extreme life and death was constantly stimulating his nerves. Can't stop, can't stop. Just after that, a sports car suddenly drifted and stopped in front of him. The door was opened, and a female voice came. Get in. Without much time to think, the hunter jumped on the door, slammed it shut and shouted, Hurry up. Chungyu was not slow. She changed the automatic gear to the maximum and shouted, Sit tight. Her opponent had a superb motorcycle, and her was just an ordinary four-wheeled sports car. At this time, she could only compete with her skills. The hunter was about to respond, but suddenly he was almost flying, lying on the airbag in front of him. Chungyu's speed was so fast, and behind the car, the man on the motorcycle was chasing her. The speed of the superb motorcycle was far faster than their car. What to do? The hunter was full of guilt. He could only blame himself for being too careless. Looking ahead, he looked at Chungyu and asked, Miss Chung, do you have a tissue? Chungyu was a little impatient and shouted, Find it yourself. The hunter did not dare to say more. He rummaged in the car and finally found a box of tissues, reaching out to open the window. Chungyu was a little angry. Are you crazy? Do you know what you're doing? The hunter ignored Chungyu's roar, tore up a few pieces of paper towels, opened the window and scattered them. The biker followed closely behind them. He was extremely fast and was caught off guard by the paper towel. He shook his head in disgust. She suddenly knew what he was going to do. When the man's speed slowed down slightly, the car drifted, deliberately bumped, rubbed and got stuck. Bang! There was a loud noise, and the man on the motorcycle swayed from the impact. However, with his driving skills, he didn't fall. When he steadied himself, he quickly went to check if his beloved bike was damaged. By the time he came back to his senses, the bike had already pulled away from him, and its speed was even faster. If he continued to chase, he definitely wouldn't be able to catch up. Fu*K. The man on the motorcycle cursed and took out his phone to call Tang Minjing. They ran away. How could that be? Is this how you do things? I spent so much money on you, and this is how you treat me? A shrill voice came from the other side of the phone. The biker picked his ears impatiently. What else can I do? She's already gone. What else can I do? Chapter 217. I've been discovered. When he received Chungyu's call, it was already past 7 p.m. He put down his chopsticks, and his eyes became even colder. What do you mean? Chungyu briefly told him what had happened and then said, Fortunately, the hunter got the memory card back. Give it to me. Yes, sir. When Chungyu and the hunter arrived at the house, it was almost 9 p.m. Su Qianxi was sitting on the sofa playing on the computer, while Li Xiqing was dealing with unfinished work. Hearing the doorbell, Su Qianxi got up to open the door, and Li Xiqing stopped working. As soon as they entered the door, the hunter felt a little unable to face the boss, shrinking his neck and standing far away. Chungyu directly handed the memory card to Li Xiqing. Using Su Qianxi's computer, Li Xiqing opened the video file in the memory card. The more he watched, the more gloomy his face became. Su Qianxi poured water and gave each of them a cup. Curiously, she came over. She happened to hear what the man said. Remember what Li Xiqing did to Lao Jin last time? Li Xiqing gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. His eyes were cold and full of malice. Lao Jin. He could only think of one person with the surname Jin. So, that Jin guy was very likely sent by Tang Minjing? His child, his first child with Su Qianxi, was killed by Tang Minjing? Li Xiqing looked to the side. Su Qianxi's face was pale, and her lips were pale. Biting her lower lip, she stared at the computer screen. Seeming to feel Li Xiqing's gaze, Su Qianxi looked over. Seeing his deep eyes, her heart raced. Li Xiqing found that she was looking at him with expectation, hesitation and struggle, but no surprise. It's her. Su Qianxi's voice was a bit hoarse. She played an important role in our child's death. You already knew? Li Xiqing's face darkened. Why didn't you tell me? If he had known, Tang Minjing would never have lived so freely. I just found out and… Su Qianxi looked down and chuckled self-deprecatingly. Would you believe me if I told you? Li Xiqing's expression darkened. Staring at her, he asked, why not? Su Qianxi looked up at him, feeling complicated. Why would he believe it? Would she rush up to him and tell him loudly that Tang Minjing was actually the murderer of their child, and that Tang Minjing was up to no good? Would he believe it? He wouldn't believe it. She had done this kind of thing before, hadn't she? He had been sick of this kind of thing countless times, hadn't he? In her previous life, she was suspected and spurned by everyone because of this. In this life, she didn't want to repeat the same mistakes. It was good enough that he didn't say anything, wasn't it? Seeing that she did not speak, Li Xiqing's eyes darkened and he said, You are my woman. Why wouldn't I believe you? Su Qianxi's heart was like a bell, suddenly ringing and lingering. His woman. He actually said that she was his woman again. This was the second time. The first time was when she was being bullied by those rich ladies, and he had appeared to protect her. The second time was under such circumstances. So was he serious? Could she take it seriously? Once this identity label was attached, she would never want to take it off again, forever. At this time, Li Xiqing's phone rang. There were only 2 words, Luo Zhan. Chapter 218. Li Xiqing's heart suddenly sank. He opened the page as quickly as he could and clicked on the first trending topic. It was a striking title. Li Xiqing's wife is not satisfied. Meets male prostitute late at night. Insatiable desire? Meet a male prostitute late at night? Nonsense. Li Xiqing slapped the table. Li Xiqing's wife has no desire at all. Cheng Yu suddenly realized something and looked at Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi suddenly blushed and tugged at Li Xiqing. On the other side of the phone, Luo Zhan also choked on his saliva. After a while he said, Bro, there's a lot of information in your words. Li Xiqing was speechless. But I've already deleted all the photos and replaced them with your wedding photos. There's only the title, so it shouldn't be much of a topic. Sure enough, when he scrolled down and clicked on the pictures, he saw that they were all refined wedding dresses. Su Qianxi's facial features were extremely beautiful. When Li Xiqing took this set of wedding photos, his face was always cold. If Grandpa did not force him, she had no doubt that he would definitely turn around and leave. However, why do you have this kind of picture? Oh, I took it from your wife's computer. Luo Zhan didn't care. Su Qianxi's eyes widened. This guy had hacked into her computer? F***ck. Can't you have some privacy? Moreover, was it really okay to say such a wicked thing out loud? Li Xiqing scrolled and found that the topic was from 10 minutes ago. There must be someone behind it for it to become a trending topic so quickly. Who is it? Did you find anything? Of course I'm Z. The hunter's eyes widened. No way, really? Luo Zhan heard another person's voice and immediately got angry. Are you on speakerphone? Yes. Damn, who's next to him? My wife, my assistant, and a stupid hunter. Li Xiqing's fingers flew over the keyboard, and he quickly posted. Luo Zhan still wanted to say more, but suddenly exclaimed, You actually posted on Weibo. My wife will be meeting on October 15th. All major media are welcome to visit. F***ck. You even posted a picture of her kissing. You are declaring war. Li Xiqing curled his lips. Yes, he was declaring war. Tang Minjing had opened Weibo happily, wanting to see the effect of her money. He believed that now Su Qianxi must have become a street rat. She wondered what Li Xiqing's expression would be like now. However, after looking around, he could only find a topic about Su Qianxi. Mrs. Li's fan meet. Clicking in, the first post was Li Xiqing's Weibo. The attached picture was a beautiful picture of a kiss. The quality of the picture was not very high, so it must have been taken with a cell phone. The background was the blue sea. Su Qianxi was wearing a red off-shoulder gown, blushing. She was holding Li Xiqing, and he was kissing her lips passionately. Tang Minjing's breathing became shorter and shorter. She screamed and smashed the computer. Bastard, bastard. Mrs. Tang immediately ran in and yelled, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Seeing her mother, Tang Minjing immediately burst into tears. "Mom, what should I do? What should I do? I can't wait for that day. I'm going to tell the world now that the baby in my belly belongs to Li Xiqing. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.